live? Is it gonna be Facebook Live?
Do you want it to be?
Whatever you want.
All right. I got Matt Shears, everybody. We're just hanging out on a Friday evening when it's cold again after being warm and teasing us like the winter had broken. But we continue on, and apparently he wants everybody to see his face this beautiful evening. So we're gonna put this on Facebook Live so everything doesn't freak out while I'm trying to do it. So we're gonna do it anyway. Matt Shears, if you don't remember, he's the chair of the Knox County Democratic Party. For now, question mark. We'll talk about that because I know a lot of the parties are restructuring right now and they're off-year kind of play. And then we got city stuff coming up, which is non-partisan by default, but we still get active with them whether we're able to say we're in a party or not. And then I was thinking about it when the last time we saw these guys. We've had an insurrection since the last time they were on. We have a new president in office. We have another impeachment going through, and that's all the national crap that I don't really care about. So
it's been a crazy 3 weeks.
It's been a crazy year to go on to just continues on. I mean, 2020 is not over, I guess, is the moral of the story. So, Matt Shears, everybody. We're sitting down, we're hanging out. I'm trying to get live while we're doing this, which is why I'm talking a little less good as normal. See, that was terrible.
Oh, sorry about the Packers.
All right, that's fine. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm disappointed as well. Yeah, I mean, I sure don't like Tom Brady, but you can't bet against that guy in the playoffs. That's just the way it is.
I've never been a fan of Tom Brady, and I don't want him to win another Super Bowl. I suppose it stings a little less that he's not with the Patriots, because more than disliking Tom Brady,
See, I'm not sure which. I don't know. That's a thing for me too. Is like it's surely proved, without a doubt, that Belichick was not the linchpin to that combination.
Brady has talent, real talent.
Right, but to support the Patriots a little bit, a credit to them is they were able to get guys to overperform with Brady, which is again probably a testament to Brady as much as anything else. But Tampa has gone out there and paid for it, and they've gotten players.
Mm-hmm.
So anywho, that's football, and we got a week off, and then we get the Super Bowl, which the narrative writes itself for this Super Bowl either way with the championship games. It's the changing of the guard. It's the old guard versus the new guard. It's the super veteran that would have been Rodgers or Brady, and this happens to be the one versus whichever young kid won the AFC championship. So
to a lesser extent, it reminds me of the Cam Newton, Peyton Manning Super Bowl, but that one, Cam Newton just kind of fizzled out after that. So
yeah, and I mean, I think I don't know, either one could. I still question the super mobile quarterback as a long-term staple in the league. It seems like even Mahomes did it this year, where like last year before, nobody could figure out what to do with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now it seems like for the most part, it's not as big of an advantage as it was, I guess is what I'm getting at. And so the length of the career of the super mobile quarterback is what I'm still waiting to see, because we haven't had an example have a good long career with it.
Yeah.
I mean, Rodgers kind of was a little bit more mobile when he was younger, but that was never his lynch.
What about Michael Vick?
I mean, I don't know. We didn't get to see him. He got jail time and kicked out of the league for a couple of years.
Yeah, true.
So, all right. So okay. So we alluded to it early, and I was thinking about it when we decided to do this. I was like, when is the last time I talked to him? Because I had you and Randy in, and you guys were talking about all the restructuring and stuff coming up, which is always cool. But I think, all right, we're live now. For those of you jumping in, we've been at it for a whole 4 minutes.
We were talking about football, so you didn't miss anything.
Yeah. It was just Matt rubbing it in about my Packers losing, which was.
I said I'm sorry that they lost.
Yeah, but you said it in that way that wasn't really sorry. But and so I've been catching it like on all sides because I don't really care. Like I think it's crazy, the whole January 6th thing. It's unacceptable on all the different levels and stuff like that. But I cannot get behind this second impeachment. I wasn't really behind the first one either, but the definition of inciting violence or inciting an insurrection in this case as the specific, but this does not meet the definition to me. And that's where I struggle with it. It's like there's plenty of stuff we could have impeached Trump for plenty of times over the things. I don't even agree that the first one was totally adequate as my understanding of the law goes. But this scares the shit out of me, and we talked about this in a chat for a little bit when we were chatting back and forth on Messenger or whatever. Is like if it doesn't look like it's going to happen as far as conversations going in DC right now, but if he gets indicted on this impeachment, it really concerns me for the freedom of political speak specifically moving forward, because to me, we use those words a lot in politics talk when we're trying to excite our followers into whatever agenda we're working on. We use the words fight and stand up and make your voice heard. We use those terms a lot. And, I haven't gone through word for word to the entire rally prior to, but none of it seemed to me in that to jump the level into specifically. And that's, again, my understanding of the legal part of it is to hold up in court on an incitement of violence charge. It has to be very specific. The result of the action was specifically asked for by the leader, whether the leader participated in the action or not, which it's hazy at best to me. So I don't know. Like, again, I didn't vote for Trump either time. I didn't vote for Clinton or Biden, but that's not the point. I'm not a big Trump fan. I don't have my QAnon hat over here or my MAGA hats or anything like that. I mean, for a content sake, he's been a fun president for the show, but as an American, I mean, he didn't do anything that I hoped he would as an outsider. Like, there was real hopes for me that as an outsider, he was going to really, like, he highlighted some things that I think we all knew that maybe we didn't talk about. But for the most part, he didn't do any of the shaking the shit like I was hoping to either. So, I don't know. Your thoughts on the actual charge of the impeachment?
Well, to begin with, I would say that it's more than just what happened on January 6th. It was the lead up to it. I mean, it was 3 months of straight lies about ballots being created, the dismantling of integrity in our election, and it really just culminated in what January 6th was. And so the idea of him inciting, I mean, he's been inciting this kind of detrimental distrust of voter integrity for 3 months now.
Election integrity
for 3 months now.
Right, I agree.
And it just culminated in January 6th. And I mean, and also, yes, we use the words. I mean, Elizabeth Warren all the time says we got to fight for this, we got to fight for that. But no one that I know besides Rudy Giuliani says we need trial by combat, which was a direct quote from Rudy Giuliani at the rally that day.
Okay, and again, but hold on, time out. So as a lead speaker at an event, you're responsible for the speech of the other speakers?
Well, he's the president's personal attorney, arguing on behalf of the president.
In that capacity, does that? I don't know if I get what you're after here, but I don't know if I agree with that either. But I follow it. Okay, all right. I'll let that detail slide for now.
No, it's more than just what happened on his speech on January 6th. It's just the build up to it. And I mean, he did tell them to go down there,
right,
and show them that we're going to take our country back. And I mean, I'm not an attorney. I can't get into the legal specification of what is inciting a riot or not inciting a riot, but no matter what the situation is, his conduct there that day and before was not up to par with what the president of the United States should be. And it's one thing if there's a private citizen that lies. I mean, I can tell a lie, you can tell a lie, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Who was the comedian? I can't remember what it was. I think it was probably a George Carlin. It was if you lie to the government, you go to jail. If the government lies to you, it's normal. I believe that's the punchline, something of that nature.
So, I mean, if you or I say a lie and we say it for 3 months and we post it on social media, it's one thing. But if technically the most powerful political person in the country does that for 3 months and uses every avenue of his entire administration to also perpetuate that lie, then that's another thing. And it's had bipartisan commitments that what he did was wrong. I'd also say that he just fixated on this for 3 months. I mean, remember when there was a bombing on Christmas Day in Nashville? There was no public statement. He didn't even tweet about it, but he tweeted like 4 days that day about how they were printing.
And and I guess this is a reflection of the national media as a whole, because I don't recall seeing a lot of. I mean, there was some national media attention to it, but maybe it felt different just because it was closer to home than some of the other things like this that have happened in the past. But I didn't feel like there was a lot of national media attention on it either. There was some.
Regardless of the media, the president should have made a statement or something, but instead he was fixated on.
Right. I get, but I guess my point being is that the media is fixated on whatever he is doing about whatever he's fixated on instead of things as well. I'm not saying that it's not an excuse for him to not make the statement. I agree. There should have been a something along those lines. I actually ended up talking to a buddy of mine in Nashville a couple days after it happened, and he heard it from his house. And like, wow. And was, we went down some conspiracy theories on the different, whatever rolling around. And apparently and
the thing too, he fixated on Georgia. And even if the Georgia election had turned, he still would have lost. I don't know why he fixated on Georgia. I guess
because the runoff. I mean, that's the only thing.
The runoff, which was really, unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the Republican Party because we as the Democratic Party poured a lot of money, a lot of resources down there in Georgia. But in some ways, I felt like the Republicans weren't doing very much either, because after you're continually telling your voters, hey, the election's rigged, it's not a surprise when they don't come out and vote. And particularly in northern Georgia is where they had very low Republican turnout, which is where they really needed to boost turnout.
Yeah, it was and
at points he forgot David Perdue's name. And also at these rallies they all they wanted was Trump. They didn't really want David Perdue or Kelly Loeffler. So I don't know. It will be an interesting couple months and years for the Republican Party going forward, because I think they really have to do some soul searching on what the future on the macro level is, but then also on micro level, state level, county level, things like that.
Right. Because there's the rumor that he might go start his own party, which I think is more likely if he doesn't get indicted on the impeachment, because I would argue that if he is not the center of the game, he's not going to play it. So he's not going to start a new party to not be the candidate. So if he's still allowed to be a candidate, I don't know if he's going to do it or not, but it's a third party. I'm down. Let's party. Let's boogie. I'm sure you're down too. It does.
It's interesting to think about the logistics of what it would take to start a third party, because a lot of those people, the infrastructure would be pulled from the Republican Party. I don't know. I feel like the Republicans would try and make it like dual party, like I'm running on the Republican Party and I'm endorsed by the Patriot Party or MAGA Party or whatever. I don't know, but
yeah, but I don't think he'd play that game if he's going to do it. If he's going to do it, it's a full fuck you to the GOP and everybody else.
But I don't think that's necessarily going to happen now, because you have Kevin McCarthy that flew down to Florida yesterday or today to meet with them. I mean, it seems like for the time being they're gonna throw their chips in with Trump. So we'll see.
Yeah. And again, I don't know. It's going to be. I agree that the party as a whole, because the problem here, and we've talked about this in chat and stuff. I've talked about it with a bunch of different people. It's like, I guess the best example is there was a Todd Fromeyer put up a post, something about, you're not allowed to, Biden was elected on these issues. He's going to push forth these issues. And my statement on it as a non-Trump supporter, but as just a person watching the show of what is national politics, but that we don't know the answer to the question of how many people voted for Biden and how many people voted not Trump's. And so to say that the Biden agenda, he was voted in on his agenda, I would still argue that anybody was voted in to not be Trump at this point, to push. And again, it's not to push back on Biden agenda currently, but I bring that up because that the question of Trump starting a new party, there are 75 million Americans that voted for that guy, presumably. Some of them 74.2. Some of them might not be real. Some of them might have been the rigged ones he was talking about. He just wasn't paying attention to who that rigged for. But we'll just on a conservative basis, just to say, we'll say 60 something plus million people for real voted for this guy. there's something going on that got people to vote for this guy. And yes, certainly plenty of them bought into the rhetoric that Biden's a, super socialist, whatever bullshit Democrat thing that everybody likes to push out when you're playing that game. So certainly a good chunk of people that voted for Trump really just voted for not whoever the Democrat was. But there is a chunk of that on both sides of it that actually voted for the candidates. And I think especially when we talked about it is when we go down ballot and all the different down ballot issues. Down ballot didn't go at all like people thought it was going to go. We thought Trump was going to kill the GOP all the way down, and he didn't.
I do believe that Democrats were a bit naive about the Trump turnout ability. We didn't think that he could turn out the people that he did, but he did. I do think perhaps though the lesson is that they will turn out when Trump's on the ballot, but not necessarily when he's not. I mean, we saw that in Georgia as well. So that will be interesting to see what midterms look like because Trump will not be on the ballot.
Right.
And I think some of those lower level Republican victories were just because the tailwinds of people coming out to vote for Donald Trump, and then they just vote R all the way down. But they didn't do that when in the Georgia special elections for whatever reason. An interesting Tennessee spin on all of this is that just yesterday, Bill Hagerty announced that 13 former Trump staffers are now working on Bill Hagerty's staff, Tennessee senator. So that's a Tennessee connection to post-Trump presidency.
Well, I mean, Hagerty ran as a Trumper, so I mean, it is certainly reasonable to assume that their circles run together, and you have a lot of unemployed people now that Trump's not president. So if they were good at it, you pick them up. Why not? But I don't know. Because like I said, like the broader picture of what politics is in America now post, I mean, and we're not even really post-Trump yet. It is weird how silent the air has been without Trump on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's almost like we don't know what to talk about except for what he tweeted yesterday, and we don't have what he tweeted yesterday anymore. So what are we supposed to do?
I would say I've been quite surprised that he hasn't been. I mean, he still has channels to get out his message and communicate, but he hasn't been doing that for whatever reason. I don't know why. In some ways, I'm glad he's not because I think the country needs a break from that. But I mean, he could go on Fox News, he could go on Hannity, he could go on Rush Limbaugh, and he's not doing anything.
I mean, I'd have him on here. I won't lie. I'd have him on if he wanted to come.
Almost an agreement.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. I'm here. I'm here for ears. So if that's what it takes to get me ears, I don't know if I could. I don't know if I'd pass security protocols or anything, but I'd do it. Why not? It'd be fun.
I also kudos to you for booking all these people lately. I mean, you've had the real deal folks on every week. It seems like. I'm trying to get through. I'm trying to finish off and get the rest of the commission, and then start working into the city. I feel like I'm kind of imposing on the city since I'm not a resident, but at the same time I do my business in the city, so I shouldn't feel that way. But I mean, it's like the Board of Health thing's been a big one, and I've had direct involvement through the show as well as through my half-ass attempt to get on the Board of Health thing. And Kyle Ward is he's my commissioner. And so, not that it makes that big a difference on my commissioner was the one that, put this thing officially into place and all that kind of shit. But, it's been a little bit more, I guess, personal for me, just my commissioner doing this thing and watching this thing unfold. And, what really kicked me into like, a higher gear on trying to do this is I was watching, I was fooling around on Facebook and At Large, not Larson, Biggs came across a video that Biggs did he did a just like a quick weekly update kind of video or something like that on his off his Facebook page, and it was right after Christmas, and that's the first I'd heard of the death threats, and I was like, what? And so I watched it again, make sure I heard it right, and I was like, there are people threatening our commission's lives, apparently on both sides. Mm-hmm. The Democrats received those as well.
Yeah, about it's whether and I'm not sure. I haven't gotten clarification on whether it's because Biggs is one of the proponents for the dissolution of the Board of Health. So I don't know if it's one of those you better follow through with this or I'll kill yous, or if it's you better knock this off or I'll kill you. I didn't ask that specific question, but we've had the Kincannon's house and the health department and all this different shit. And it's like,
and Parenthood was shot at. That's separate, but yeah.
Wait, I say it again.
The Planned Parenthood location in Knoxville, someone shot through the door with a shotgun.
Right. Nothing says stop killing people like trying to kill somebody. Perfectly logical.
The Kincannon thing, like you said, on the side of the Board of Health building as well.
Yeah, which apparently that guy was from Sevier County. I mean, what the fuck's that? I mean, go paint on your own buildings. Leave us alone. Don't know what his involvement and why he decided it was important to him. Although I did read somewhere that the Board of Health had asked the state for authority over surrounding counties too at some point. Maybe that's connected. Maybe it's not. Just like everything else, it was a blurb and then moved on because that's local media for us.
What commissioners have you yet to have on now?
I might have to look up the list. I had Beeler on. I've got who do I have scheduled on Monday? I've got Dasha coming back on later in February, but I'm sorry, Dasha. Damn it, that was fucked up. Dasha. But I had Beeler, I had Larson, I had Biggs. Back in right after they got in, I got Courtney in during the campaign and after the campaign. I've had Kyle. I've got Terry Hill coming in on Monday.
Sweet.
I mean, it seems like as I get in touch with the older commissioners, it's a little slower on the upkick.
Wessler and Daly and
yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just like we got this baseball stadium thing, and I'm committed to the idea that I'm not going to wait until it's on the table to know what's going on. Like, which gives whoever I'm talking to a little bit of an out to be like, well, we don't know officially what their proposal is, so I can't really speak to this, that, or the other. But it's like, I'm scared to death of it's going to be, it's going to be like just us talking about it, abstract talk, and all of a sudden it's on the table, and everybody's mind's already made up, and it's gone before it's on the table, it's signed off on, and they're like, hey, wait, hold on a second. I don't want to run into that. I want to be ahead of the curve on that one.
I don't think there's a specific timeline right now for what that looks like.
Right. Well, I mean, I know they put the sports authority is official, and both mayors are working together to appoint said body, and then the commission and the council will get to approve said body. And then Eric Wader of the Nats crew, he's like, that's cool. I'm good with the sports authority, but who are these people? We don't know who any of these people are yet. I mean, and then again, same concern. Is it going to be Jacobs and Kincannon put a set of people up and it's not an option? These are just the people that the mayors have put up, and it's either yay or nay by the commissions at that point. And, we don't know what certain boards and commissions and stuff like this, they have like an assigned body. Like it has to be one person from this industry, one person from this subset of the economy kind of thing. That part hasn't been discussed. It's just however many people, and they're going to be.
Yeah. I think that this will be an interesting exercise in local political dynamics, because you have the city council, which is predominantly controlled by Democrats. And then you have the county commission, which is predominantly controlled by Republicans, having to work together and in many ways having equal say on certain aspects of what the sports authority looks like, which is interesting because it's been a while since we've had to have discussions from groups from two different political parties on kind of an equal playing field. So I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Right, I agree, but it sounds to me like the way the sports authority is set up is once it is constructed, it is its own authority on the thing, and then it is present proposal too. So input from the commission or the council are done until there's official proposal. Mm-hmm. And there again, as I understand it, the sports authority could have a proposal. They can make adjustments to the proposal, put it back to the Smokies and whomever else. But the sports authority is speaking on behalf of the two governing bodies. And so it could very easily be the sports authority, I don't know what it would be, but leans really favorably to city wants out of it, and they adjust proposals, send it back, go back and forth, and then it comes up a very city-friendly version and not county-friendly version or something like that, depending on the makeup of the sports authority. But once the sports authority is in place, it is the body that makes those decisions. And then until it's full on signing off on whatever official proposal we're doing, the commission or city council doesn't have another shot at it, as I understand it. So that body is going to be a very important body in what they're negotiating for. Like, what is their interest and intent as a group of individuals, not commission, not council. Mm-hmm. Again, my understanding of it, but
how many members are there going to be? Do you know?
I don't. That was. I mean, I assume that since they voted on it, they've already decided that, and I guess they're using a model from another municipality, but I haven't heard officially which one. Mm-hmm. But it's like that post I put up on the Almost Agreement page. That it was a WATE story where it's some developer who's basically putting like a giant multi-use building in the Barley's parking lot, the way it reads to me. And it's like, as you're reading through it, they're talking to the developer. He's like, yeah, it's going to be great when this baseball stadium gets here. It's like, oh, well, I'm glad that you know that the baseball stadium's coming. How do you know that? And we don't.
When I read that story, what I thought? I thought this is really going to save some tourists some money, because you have to pay like $5 to park in that gravel parking lot beside Barley's. And there's literally the free parking 15 feet away underneath the bridge. But all the time, especially when we have lots of tourists, there are people just kind of shoveling out money to park in that gravel parking lot right there when they can park for free 15 feet away.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know if that's taxable income for whomever's managing that parking lot. But the real thing to me on the baseball stadium, like, I get the premise, but I don't understand the value if we're going to do a special tax district around it. And it's like, well, the argument is, well, this space is doing nothing. Okay, it's not generating any tax source. Okay, but we're going to put it in, and we're going to have a special tax district that pays off the debt. So this space is still doing nothing for our total coffers. Maybe auxiliarily it might, as other things pop up outside of the taxing district, or
sales tax, hotel tax,
right? Or it raises some of the total tourism we have coming in, staying in other hotels and using other locations, actual true old city or market square activity, and that has a bump in tax revenue. But the argument of the space is dead and it's not getting any tax revenue, when the space is going to be reallocated as a special tax district and still not going to put any tax revenue back into the schools, back into infrastructure, back into all the other stuff, which is the point of trying to raise the value to me. And again, I get Larson's point. He calls it civic furniture or municipal furniture or something like that. I can't remember what his exact term. I did learn that about him. That guy is a phrase machine. Like, he's got phrases and like idioms and all that kind of stuff for everything. But and so I don't know. Like, it still feels to me, the more I talk to people about it, that it's already kind of done. It's just a hammering out the details. We're gonna pay for it at some level. It's just how much. That's what it feels.
What does Jacobs think about it?
He won't talk to me. I'm not big enough for him. Just physically, I can't square up with him. He's too big for me. No, I don't know. I haven't emailed his office in a couple weeks. Last time, I can't remember what the last topic was I tried to get him on the show about, but it was not the baseball stadium. And so I don't know. I don't know. Like, to me, our Civic is terrible. That hotel down there right on the riverfront next to the Civic. And then we're moving the police department out, and that's going to be some sort of museum in there. That should help put a little bit of traffic back down there. But, like, to me, if we're going to pay for something like that as a city, that's a multi-use entertainment kind of thing, a better Civic makes more sense to me than a baseball stadium. Because if the Ice Bears up and leave, we can still do plenty of stuff in the Civic. But if the Smokies up and leave or go bankrupt or whatever happens, there's not a lot of other stuff that we can self-do through a baseball stadium that we could with a Civic. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, the Civic, we can bring bands in. We could do. The circus is not cool anymore, but like the circus or like, those kind of things, we can come through a Civic. Yeah. And they do come through the Civic, but they suck. I mean, the Civic's just hard to watch.
When's the last time you went to the Civic Auditorium?
Robin Williams.
Civic Stadium, whatever.
I saw Robin Williams in the auditorium side. That was probably 2008, maybe 2010. Which which auditorium's not bad, but the Coliseum side, it's just, I mean, like max is like 5,000.
I've only ever been there for Ice Bears. I haven't been there for any concerts or anything.
I last time was Ice Bears games. Was a couple of Ice Bears games the last couple of times I've been there. Prior to that, I saw 1975 there. And then what else did I see there? I saw something else.
I was going to go see Randy Travis there, but that was before he had his accident and couldn't.
I mean, I had Foo Fighters tickets for April of last year, but that got moved back to November and then fully canceled. But that was at Thompson. And that's one of my things too. And I don't know if you've heard me bitching about it. That's been one of the things that's been a problem to me in general. Like, I feel like and this is the reality of the situation, is we're not going to do a lot to the Civic until we outgrow the University of Tennessee as a city, because the university is going to protect Thompson in any way they can, and a new Civic would hurt Thompson. So, especially now that there's booze in there, it doesn't, like it used to be a problem because certain promoters wouldn't go into Thompson because there wasn't alcohol. But now there's alcohol allowed in there. That's extra revenue for both the promoter and the county and everybody else. And so I feel like the Civic, Civic.
Well, I think the Civic though is really, it's only because you basically go from like Bijou, Tennessee Theater, and then automatically go to Thompson Bowling and then Neyland. There's nothing in between besides the Civic.
On the Coliseum or on the auditorium side, maybe. I mean, the auditorium is about the same size as Tennessee Theater.
Well, I'm talking about the Coliseum side.
That's what I'm saying. The Coliseum's not. I mean, again, we could look this up, I'm sure, but I would say the auditorium, the total seating in the auditorium is probably not much less than the Coliseum is. So it's not a seating thing. It's the type of venue that makes more sense in one or the other.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of depending on the concert, they don't want full seating all the way to stage. They want a general admission on the floor, and then it goes over to the other side. But I mean, concerts in there are terrible. It sounds like shit. But that's beside the point. I don't know. I think that I would like.
I honestly have not developed a firm opinion on stadium stuff yet. I mean, I think there's a lot left to be said and discussed. I mean, I can understand why some people would feel like maybe it's already been decided in one way. But even I do think that there is still a lot of discussion to come regarding the specifics of it. And I don't think it will be as cut and dry or as clear. I think it'll be more complex than it is now. Or at least I hope it will be, because I do think it is a pretty complex discussion that needs to be had regarding all the interested parties, the tax revenue, things like you said. And I mean, part of that will come out of, in some ways, I think it will take longer than what people expect it to, because just the fact of forming a sports authority and having discussions and having a proposal from the sports authority, having public input in the city and in the county, and then I'm sure it'll go back and you have to have more and more discussions. So I don't know what the Smokies timeline was for like start date on construction, but I remember looking at it and thinking, well, that seems a bit early to me. But again, I don't have any insight outside of
right.
Just what people
I think 2024. I think the 24 season, which would be 3 years from now, is when they want to have it open and running. So I think the 24 season is when they want to get in there. I don't know exactly when the Smoky schedule starts. But I would assume it's, March-ish. Mm-hmm. So three and some change years. I mean, realistic.
I have been encouraged in regards to discussions about, well, how do we make sure that there's equity in housing around it? How do we know there's equity in the jobs that are created by it? And I do think that it will be an opportunity for us as a community to discuss the values that are important to us and make sure that those values are incorporated into any plan.
All right, and so that brings me to a problem I'm having understanding. And so the idea of gentrification, and when this money comes in, any residential that's down there is going to get bought out and upgraded, and then the neighborhood's going to get priced out of living there. As a problem. And I agree that sucks if you have a home that you've lived in for a while, and it might not be the greatest home ever, but functionally through your rent or mortgage or whatever, you can do it. And then all of a sudden your property tax skyrockets and you can't pay the bill, just the tax part of the bill anymore, and you got to move. And so you go from what is an up and coming nice neighborhood or nicer neighborhood as you've living there and end up having to leave because you can't afford it anymore. But I don't and again, it's like one of those, that's one of the sales pitches. And we put this baseball stadium down there, it's going to raise the property value. Well, if it raises the property value and it ends up kicking all the people out that live down there currently, then we're trying to do that, but then we're trying to have the conversation about how to not do that at the same time. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's more complex than that, though, because in that surrounding area, you do have a good number of subsidized housing, low-income housing that is specifically locked into rates. Austin Homes is around that area, and again, I don't know the specifics of all this, but there is a good number of kind of locked in low-income housing or subsidized housing in that larger area. So I don't know. And I think that I would say personally, on a personal note, that I would say any sort of development would also, in additional to that, in housing around there, I think would need to have some element of guaranteed affordable housing, because you don't want people to be priced out, obviously. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the other thing is that in the immediate surrounding of that area, there's not necessarily much commerce. I mean, there's a few like warehouses and things.
Right. It's mostly junk.
And again, I think it's an opportunity for us to discuss the values within the community. And I do believe that affordable housing should be a value, and how this impacts that is a very serious discussion that needs to be had.
I mean, I yes. But that's my problem is I don't understand methods to do it. Are there examples that we can look at of how you do a major municipal project like this with the intent to add a lot of, especially the outside surrounding investment that air quotes is guaranteed by the Boyd family and whatever. And as all that investment and stuff starts coming in, and as the value of the land comes up, that how do we, that's my issue. It's like, I don't disagree.
Yeah, well, again, I think part of it is that some of the immediate housing around that area right now is already kind of locked in for lower income housing, subsidized housing, in certain areas that are close to where the stadium would be.
Right. So then whatever contracts.
And that housing, I mean, those houses, their rates wouldn't go up because they're set at a specific amount for a reason.
Right, but then again, it's like my concern in that being, and it's not a concern per se, but my trying to logically suss out some of the things that are the sales pitch for paying for this baseball stadium is to raise that tax base. And if we have fixed income housing that is inside that area that we are hoping to raise the tax base from, we don't. Maybe we do, in the sense that some of those people can get jobs through some of the new things that are coming up, and that'll increase income, and that income gets spent and we increase taxes from that. But as far as property tax income, it's not, I mean, I'm assuming most of those fixed income places have some sort of tax break system where they're not paying as much in property tax if the property value goes up just because of what's going on neighborly. And so again, my point is not to say that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So if we're trying to stimulate economic development, which then stimulates tax dollars, but also trying to make sure that, I think it's a juggling act. And of course, not everything in that area would be set and locked into certain property values, and not everything in that area would be housing. I mean, it would be also businesses and things like that. But again, I don't know the specifics of the plan, and I really have not researched it very much.
And nobody does yet, and that's why I forced the issue and I talk about it anyway, because nobody's talking about it. Like, again, I go to that WATE story that I shared. This developer is putting that thing in there knowing that this thing is coming. I mean, he flat said it in the quote in the story. He's like, this is going to be even better when the stadium gets here. I can't. That's a paraphrase. I can look up the actual quote, but I mean, essentially, he is banking on this project being good as it stands, but getting better when baseball gets there. But the way it read to me is that he is doing this planning on the baseball stadium being there. And I don't know about you, and I don't know about how people that are developers and stuff and the way they get to handle money versus you and I get to handle money, think about things, but a multi-million-dollar complex where a chunk of it is based on a future capital investment by the county and city, I would wait till it's an official. I mean, that's just me. I would wait.
Yeah, I mean, I think whoever the developer is would probably make money whether there's a stadium or not right there too, though. I mean, obviously they are probably thinking they'll make more if there's a stadium there. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they have information. I don't know who that is, and I don't know what kind of information they're banking on. But I imagine he's at least making a bet that it would be there. But I mean, you can only. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't.
The developer's name is Birch. Said the land had to be excavated. Apparently there's some historical artifacts in there. I didn't hear anything about that or what they were. That's kind of neat. Might go through the end of 2021 before it's completely done. The future of the old city, according to Birch, is along Jackson and Willow Avenues towards what will become the Smokies baseball stadium. Maybe I don't understand English like I think I do.
It's a pretty definitive verb right there.
Yeah, will become. And it's like, and let me be clear about this. This is not a quote. This is a paraphrase from WATE of their conversation with him. The future of the old city, according to Birch, is along Jackson and Willow towards what will become the Smokies baseball stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's still a discussion, and it's not set in stone at this point, whether some people make developments or make business decisions based on that they assume that it will happen or whatever is their prerogative. But
right.
Again, I think there's a larger community discussion yet to be had, which should be had and hopefully will be had sometime soon, particularly with the sports authority and then the discussions with city council and county commission as well.
Yeah. Then I don't know. It's just. It goes to one of the things that Eric Wader was saying when he was in here talking about these. Like one of his arguments is that area is going to develop anyway, with or without that baseball stadium. This building right here at least leans towards proof of the point is that area is going to develop anyway. The new urbanization of Knoxville, which has been going on for a few years now, because I remember. You were back in North Carolina back then, but I remember when you didn't go downtown after.
Right here, hey Rosie.
Hey Rosie, you don't go downtown after 6. There's nothing to do. There's nothing there.
She ran off the other day and she came back. Anyway,
I know. I saw that story. Congratulations. That sucks trying to chase animals down the neighborhood because especially cats, they know how to hide if they don't want to be found.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But so I don't know
Market Square. I mean, Market Square redeveloped, and it grew out from there.
Yeah, and it's been fantastic, and I'm really happy for it, and I think it's great. The persons who want to live in that lifestyle and live in that atmosphere, there's a place for those people here in Knoxville, especially if I can't remember. This is the joy of having all these interviews. I forget who I talked to and who tells me things. I think it was Larson was talking about it. The Planning Commission is estimating an additional 200,000+ Knox County residents coming in the next 10 years.
Wow.
And
we estimate that a good portion of those will be Democrats.
Well, depending on why they left where they were, whether they continue to be Democrats is the question.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, it needs to be responsible, equitable development, and that takes, in some ways, that takes regulation to make sure that things don't sprawl. In some ways, don't sprawl out of control, don't price people out that don't need to be. Urban planning is a very complex task to oversee, really.
Yeah,
and cities that have done it well and cities that haven't done it well.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm like I said, I'm down with it.
I am someone who also likes historical buildings, so that adds in another complex situation about urban planning as well as what do you preserve and what do you not preserve.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure where this is going, there's nothing really worth saving, other than that one water tower down there. That one old water tower. It's not a water tower. I guess it's a water tower technically, but it's on top of one of the warehouses. It's not like a standalone tower.
Yeah.
The old salvage.
The building that KCDP's headquarters is in, the old AFL-CIO building, is one of the oldest buildings in Knoxville. It's 1880 something. No, 1890 maybe.
Yeah. I used to. My wife used to work at the Mirage when it was in its old location, right next to the First Tennessee building, and that building, I don't know what the building's called, but that building's been there forever. And what is their storage room basement or whatever was the old street level. Mm-hmm. And so you can go down there and walk to the front of the building, and there's a door and a big window that's like a commercial front window for a store or whatever, looking out at dirt, where they'd filled it in and raised it up because back in whatever we used to have a trolley car that ran down Gay Street.
Yeah.
And I guess it was easier just to fill it in than to tear up the tracks and keep Gay Street on the level it was. And so Gay Street's up a floor from where it used to be. And so interesting little history tidbits. Yeah. So I don't to move off of baseball again. It's fun to talk about. It's something interesting. It's something huge. I mean, just single dollar. I mean, just talking money wise, it's something huge, and it's something super intricate. And the more I talk to about it, the more people I talk to about it, the more intricacies get displayed. Things that I didn't think about, things that other people haven't thought about in talking about it. You know, and because I was pretty confident about, nah, fuck it, we're not paying for it. If he wants to do it, he can do it. I'll tell you what has become an issue to me the more I think about it, though. That's adjacent to the baseball stadium talking. It concerns me how much influence Boyd has in Knox County. If you think about it, you know, because I've always argued and I've said it a million times, it bothers me how much influence the university has on city and county issues. And then Boyd in and of himself has influence on city and county issues. And now he is the president of the university and has the ability to flex both of those things that he is in control of to his own ends in the city and county. I don't know if he's doing it or not. He may or may not be doing anything. But just the idea of you have one guy who is, you know, he in himself is what, top 2 or 3 in Knoxville?
Wealthy?
Yeah. And
I mean,
wealthy and influential.
Top 10 in the state.
Right. You know, and so you take that on top of, you know, also he's politically minded, politically motivated. He gets into politics. He's tried to be a politician in and of himself. He is active in promoting different politicians for whatever ends those are, or whatever they might be.
He has a PAC that still donates money.
Even though he said he wouldn't after he took his UT job. And so again, that's my point. And this, I would think you'd be on my side on this one, but that's the concern, is that, you know, whether it's a local or a state level official that he is supporting, that, you know, the quid pro quo, for lack of a better word, comes back to his ends on his personal business stuff that he can also use UT flex to try to get some things moved the way he wants to move. It concerns me. Again, I have no evidence of this. It's a logical thought pattern. If I'm sitting where he is, it's hard not to say I wouldn't use it myself. You know, if it makes a difference to this thing over here, I can do this for you, or I can take this away from you because I have the control of these things. And if you're the city of Knoxville and, I don't know, whatever it is, UT's got all these different programs that they like to do that brings in tourism. And he's like, well, we're going to slow down on our non-student activities, and that's going to affect tourism unless this happens over here. Again, I'm not saying he's doing any of these things, but it's a real possibility, and it's a real power that he has, whether he's using it or not. And that concerns me. I don't know what to do about it.
Have you invited him on the show?
I emailed somebody from his office, from the Smokey's office, about the baseball stadium. I don't think it went to him personally. I haven't. I'm all right. I'll do it. I'll try. I'll see what I can do. I'd do it. I mean, again, I'll talk to anybody. I don't care. You know, because I mean, Larson probably gave me the best compliment I've gotten so far doing the show. He's like, I talked around, like I talked to some other people that came on the show before I came on here. I did some research. I'd listened to an episode or two. You know, and if nothing else, you're at least fair. It's like, all right, that's a win for me. I'm here to get my opinions out, but I'm not here to tell you what yours are. And so I'll listen to yours and I'll tell you why you're wrong, but I'm not going to say you're actually wrong. I'm going to say, okay, that makes sense. That's not why I see it that way, but okay. You know, and I don't know. It's fun that, like, I have too much fun doing this. Like, you know, like
you're the only person that does long form interviews with local political people.
Did you watch Walk the Line? Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Johnny Cash movie, where there's that scene in there where he's like, June Carter's yelling at him about like his style or whatever, and he's like, that's just how I do. It's not like the way he says it. He's like, I just don't. This is just me. This is how I do it. And she's like, no, you're smarter than that. And I was like, no, this is me. This is just how I do it. I'm not going to take the time to do a lot of editing. I don't want to take the time to do a lot of editing. I don't care. Like I don't mind if I come off stupid. Because again, like my base argument is I don't think I'm special or different than most of my neighbors. I think I'm just as buried in my job, this is plural, and my kids and all the activities that I do as just a Knox County resident. And I don't have to spend a ton of time producing this. It's just a matter of doing a little shuffling with schedules, get some people sat down, talk about stuff. And then I do a very minor bit. I don't edit content. I just edit sound, make sure it sounds good. If it sounds good, it's out the door. Don't care if
in that regard, I'm interested in, the Board of Health issue is something that I think a good portion of Knox Countyans know about and at least care about, have an opinion about. I don't
think they do. I think they have an opinion about it, but I don't think they actually know what it's about.
Yeah, that's true. But I wonder what is the level of cognizant understanding of the stadium issue in Knox County.
Zero.
I think a certain number of people know it, but I think kind of your average person isn't very familiar with.
I don't think anybody. I don't even think people that should know about it. Like really know what the conversation is. And again, talking to Larson about it or any of the other people I've talked to about it, it's really there's nothing to officially talk about. And so whether it's
nothing like on paper yet,
right, and whether it's the political end of I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth now and then have to answer for it later, so I'm just going to talk vaguely about it because I don't know, there are no specifics to talk about, and if I make a point for or against something and it comes back to bite me later, I'm just going to avoid making the point now. Or it's the reality is outside. I don't know. This would be a good question to get with somebody who's was or is in the Nashville local government on how they went about some of the things with the Nissan Stadium or the Bridgestone or stuff like that, because I don't know that there are a lot of people total in the planet who understand how these things work. Because I'm of the argument that this was. So my day job, I'm what we call a merchandiser for one of the beer companies in town. Essentially what I do is I'm a stock boy that doesn't work for the grocery store. I work for the distributor. Right. And so literally I go into a Food City and I stock the beer that my company delivers there instead of a Food City employee or whoever doing it. And so my assumption on how this job was created in the first place was it was some guy with some product who went into a Food City and was like, hey, you should buy my product and you should sell it on your shelves. And they're like, yeah, but we have these other that are similar. And he's like, well, okay, here's what I'll do. I will bring it in here. I'll put it on the shelf. I'll make it look pretty. And if it doesn't sell by the sell-by date, I'll take it back and I'll give you your money back. And they said, okay. And then the other people that sold a product similar to it that were losing shelf space to this guy go, how's this guy getting in here? His stuff's not any better. Oh, he's doing this thing, so now we're doing this thing. And then it ballooned out, and now everybody does it. Go into a grocery store at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there will be a half a parking lot full of cars. And I guarantee you 10% of those cars are actual customers.
It's mostly people that are stocking the shelves.
Right. If you seriously, you're talking most of your freezer aisle, DiGiorno's and Red Baron and stuff like that. There's guys that come in and stock for them, all of your beer, all of your soda, all of your chips, unless it is the brand of that store. Like if it's a Kroger brand product, or if it's a Food City, whatever their brand name is, unless it's their brand in that store, or wine, because wine has a legal issue around it and third parties aren't allowed to do stuff, and produce and stuff like that. But if it's not one of those, somebody that works for not Food City or Kroger or the grocery store you're in is the one putting it on the shelf. There are guys with Coke and Pepsi especially. They have guys that come in 2 or 3 times a day. They'll come in the morning, and they'll come back in the afternoon, and then they'll come back at night because they move that much off the shelf, and they're pulling it out of the back room, putting it on the shelf all day long. Anyway, my point being, I assume that's the same thing that where this baseball thing came from, where these municipal stadium projects came from. Back in some old version, which was the dirty politics days, not unlike today, but the dirty politics days, some guy who owned a baseball team, who was also a mayor or something of Chicago or some random whatever, got the idea to do it and did it. And then from then on, every other owner goes, oh, this is a thing we can do. And so now that it's a thing we can do,
It'd be interesting to look at the history of public financing of sports stadiums, because I don't know where it started really.
I don't either, but I'm assuming it's one of the two. And
I do know that this discussion is not new to Knox County. In the 90s, there was a discussion about a similar stadium.
Yeah, I mean that's why they left. They left because we refused.
And my understanding is that there were discussions to build it, but it broke down between the city and the county. They couldn't come to an agreement on certain aspects. And the location, though, was going to be kind of where one of the interchanges are now, one of the newer ones. But there was a breakdown in communication between the city and county, and then they just couldn't agree, and then the Smokies left.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the Smokies want to come back.
Right. I mean, as far as that I've heard, at least they didn't want to leave. They just the city county, like you said, couldn't or wouldn't.
And the stadium that they played in before, I don't know the history of it. I don't know if that stadium was publicly financed or not. That would be interesting to learn.
It's still there, is it not?
No, it's like redeveloped.
Is it? It had been there. It's fairly recent redevelopment then, because it had been there for a good minute. Because they used to still do like high school tournaments or something there every once in a while. Because I remember a number of times driving through there and the lights being on and being like, "What are the lights on for?" But I don't know. Anyway, I tried to move us off baseball and we came back again. But I don't know. I don't know. I again, even the data, like even when you look up some of the different research on different municipalities that have done it, there's so many little parts and pieces that there's no way there's going to be a definitive answer that makes it clear that this is going to or not going to work. It is a risk no matter how we do it. It's a risk that they don't come here if we don't do it at all. It's a possibility that they come here even if we don't do it. Not likely, but and it's a risk that they go bankrupt in a couple of years. It's a risk that minor league baseball drops a bunch of teams and they just cease to exist. I don't know exactly how that works on the finance professional, whether they end up going bankrupt or they just cease to exist as an entity in business. So they have no assets and we take them back and all that kind of stuff. And so, there's no amount of here's the data to show what will happen. This is what could happen if X, Y, and Z goes along with it, assuming that the team stays relevant and stays functional and stays this and stays that or whatever. And so, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's fascinating on the intricacies of it. I think it's the more I talk about it, the more I think about all the different details that are out there, and the more I lose an opinion, which is the terrible part of it. I mean, realistically, the more I talk,
the more it becomes gray and less black and white.
Right.
Well, it also underscores the importance of local government and the people we have in local government, because you want people to be thoughtful when making decisions about this, because this is a very serious decision that will. It won't fundamentally change the trajectory of our city, but it will change the trajectory of that area of town and the people that live there, and whatever comes there, something else can't be there. There's an opportunity cost to that as well. Right. So you want well-informed, thoughtful, reflective people making the decisions around this.
See, on my new list of random things of thoughtfulness, I think we need to get city county building somewhere else. I think we need to tear that thing. I think we need to tear it down and put something cooler there. I mean, it's too cool of a spot to have the boring old government building.
It is.
I mean, the building. In fairness, the building's kind of cool.
It's a great view from the city's or from the mayor's office.
Right. It's a cool building. I mean, even the building itself is a cool building. It's just the operations that go on down there to have to be right there in such a cool ass spot. I mean, I say that, but the most likely new tenant would be the university for something, and that doesn't make me feel any better either. But to go back to the Board of Health thing, and when you were praising me on my long form interviews and trying to understand things and trying to get information out to people, and you said it, and I jokingly corrected you, but I think it's a hot topic. I think a lot of people know that it's a thing. I think it highlights some of the problems with local media to me that whether I'm doing a good job of trying to correct their mistakes or not. Because Monday I had Beeler in here and I was up and I got the kids off to school and I'm sitting down and I was watching a little bit of whatever the morning news was, the local one, not Today's Show or whatever, but the local version. And you know how the morning news is it's like 7 minutes and they just repeat it over and over again.
Yeah, same 7 minutes.
Right, and it's like, weather, traffic, maybe a sports blip, maybe a this, and they interchange a few of them. But every 7 minutes, it was like Board of Health's meeting, or not Board of Health, but the County Commission's meeting tonight, and the vote on the Board of Health is tonight. There were 54 items on that agenda. 54 items on that agenda, and they're only talking about one on the news. And I went through that whole agenda, and most of them are boring. Don't get me wrong. Some of it's land use crap that, unless that's your neighbor or something like that, it's hard to really have a understanding or one input on it. But there's a couple that popped out to me though, like the Knox County Sheriff's Office is buying a drone under cost from the Department of Defense, and apparently the way things work is if we buy something. The county is not allowed to receive anything without commission approval. And since we're getting it under a cost, that by definition is receiving it because it's under how much it should cost. So we're getting it on clearance from the Department of Defense. So, don't know what the county sheriff's office wants a drone for, what they're going to do with it. I know Senator Massey is on a bill in the state about changing some of the rules that they're allowed to use drones for. And that's on my.
I think those are more like private drones rather than government drones. But yeah.
No, the state one.
Yeah.
No, Massey's one is talking about how it's going to change their. I know one of the specifics on it is like right now, any drone footage is only usable for 3 days. If there's nothing attached to it, it's invalid after 3 days. And that's I know the new one is.
Like police drones, like looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I know this one on the Massey bill thing is it's going to increase that to 30 days. So if I don't know, I'm trying to think of a scenario where it makes sense. So
where you're growing marijuana in a field somewhere, and
well, I was thinking more like more something that would actually make sense for them to be using a drone for. Like there's a festival downtown, and we're there at the festival. And they're flying the drone overhead that's on the World's Fair Park in the field there. We're at the 4th of July show, what they do down there or whatever. We're down there and some instance happens or some report of some instance happens. Nobody's officially not something huge and crazy, but just some sort of random act of violence in the corner somewhere. And there's a report of it. Well, the current standard is that if the drone is there and it has footage of it, they can only access that footage for 3 days. After 3 days, it's trash. And the new law will give them 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know exactly what the purpose behind that is. Again, the incident doesn't matter. So it could be, again, if you're going to bring up pot, that's fine. Me and you are there and we're passing the doobie back and forth and, it's nobody's paying attention to it or whatever, but some poor Knox County.
Libertarian and liberal.
Right. Well, no, some Knox County officer is sitting there reviewing the drone footage and sees it. 5 days later, they can use it now. Where if they didn't find it within 3 days, they couldn't use it in the old version of it. And there's a lot of libertarian issues that I have with that. With just the police use of a drone in the first place.
Your point was that there were 52 additional items on.
Right. Yes, that was the main point. But one to me that popped out that I feel like warrants discussion. I talked to Beeler about it after I saw the news before he went into the meeting. And he's like, I don't know. It's just on there because it's less than what it should cost, and we have to approve that as a gift, essentially, to the county. And it's like, so, is that something that we as the commission, but is that something that you as the commission have authority over what the sheriff's office is doing with the drone, or is that a new set of conversations I need to get Sheriff Spangler on here and his staff? And start talking about their use of that and who's giving them authority to use that way. Is that a state level issue? Likely. Or is it a local issue? Not as likely, but stuff like that. It's like, and like I said, I went down through it. There were a couple other items on the list that kind of popped out to me that at least were worth talking about. But, again, all that mattered was the item 52, which was the Board of Health second reading.
Were there any other votes that were not unanimous? I don't.
Well, on and I found this interesting because it's the first time I've really read through prior to a meeting what the agenda was. So they have their work day the week before.
Yeah,
it was on Tuesday that week because Martin Luther King Day was the Monday. But essentially, they do their work week and they put on as they finalize the agenda, they put on the work group recommendation, which essentially means they just vote on it in the work group.
Yeah.
and then they put their vote on it there. And so, like, most of them are 11-0, 11-0, 11-0 all the way down. And then anything that had any contestant, like anything that was contested and they didn't agree on, it says work group needs, I can't remember what the verbiage was, but basically says nothing, more or less. It just says, for consideration or something like that was the verb on there. And so, and again, my point being, it's like, I don't think the media has done a good job of covering other things going on. I understand that the Board of Health is the bigger topic to a lot of people, but I don't think they did a good job of explaining to people what the actual conversation is about. Because again, I don't think it, legally speaking, this resolution really does anything functionally anyway, because it's a state level, it comes out of state authority to start with. But even if it was as simple as the commission could do it, I don't think the media is showing what the conversation is.
It's more, it's kind of like what we were just talking about. It's much more complex than a yes or no vote. There's the legality of, well, can the commission even take this power away? If the commission takes this power away, do they have to get rid of the entire Board of Health and then reappoint the Board of Health? Does this a state level issue? Does this fall under Governor Bill Lee's directive? There's lots of different.
Right. And one of the things
but your average citizen doesn't have time, nor do they even probably are interested in learning.
Right. But I would still even argue that even if it was the simplified version of it, that the coverage is not about what the actual conversation is about. The conversation should be about whether or not we're okay with a non-elected body making legal decisions about how you and I go about our lives. It's not about the decisions they're making. It's about who's making the decisions. Beeler gets it. He verbed it a similar way to that. That was the point from Kyle as far as when he pitched it to me the first time before it's all really kind of got rolling. That's the conversation that is not, I don't see being had. It's a conversation.
Yeah, but I think that Kyle has also presented numerous different reasonings for why he's doing this. I think that was one reason at one time, and then he presented another reason at another time, and then there's been multiple reasonings behind this.
And that's fine. If he changes his stance on it or not, I don't know. But to me, that's the core argument at play here. It's not like I've made the argument is that I really think, and I get why he may or may not have done it this way, but I really think Mayor Jacobs screwed it up. I think if he would have, because he's the only elected person on the Board of Health, I think if he would have voted with their decision and then come out and said, I agree with the actions that need to be taken, but not who's taking the action. This is the issue, not what they're doing. And I think by him voting against the board and then coming out and saying the board shouldn't exist, people are thinking he's trying to kill the board because they're disagreeing with his point of view. And it's not the action that is in question here. It's the who's making the action. And I don't think anybody's talking about it that way.
Yeah, but I think, it depends on who you talk to. I think some people that you talk to, it's the action. It's they shouldn't be forcing people to wear masks. They shouldn't
from the public sake, right? From the public input sake, for sure.
I think at points Kyle has even said that. He said that, well, you don't want that, or even some commissioners. I think someone said, well, if they make you wear masks, then they can take your guns away.
That was Kyle through Biggs, but it's not. And again,
it's a stretch.
It is a stretch, but it's not. It's legally it's not. But that's not the point. The point is not. The point is who's taking it away, not what they're taking away. And I think that's the point, and it's been the point the whole time. And maybe Kyle's done a poor job articulating it. But but
again, even from Law Director Book, you have different reasoning from him. He says, well, this isn't allowed underneath the governor's directive, or this isn't allowed when we established it in 1996. I think at the end of the day, for whatever reason, there's a group of people that wants to get rid of the Board of Health, and there's been multiple reasonings to try and get rid of that from different angles. And I don't know. Like you said, at the end of the day, come April, it looks like they'll have the votes. So.
Well, I'm pissed that they didn't just go ahead and fucking do it. I'm really mad that they didn't go. I don't know. I fully if nothing else.
I'm glad that the Board of Health still exists, but I
would rather they still exist and still exist long term because we made the decision and moved on instead of postponing it for another 90 days, because now this is what we're going to continue to talk about primarily amongst every board meeting, every commission meeting, It's going to have so much attention on it
it's
because
the same argument over and over. And
right.
in some ways, it's the same people. It's the same people who show up.
Right, exactly. And it's like we're not moving on. Okay, it's like I get it. I don't know. And again, maybe I understand it better than anybody else at play does. But to me, if the question of who's doing it, not what's getting done, is the real conversation to be had, and we are going to continue for another 90 days not having that conversation.
My thing about the unelected board thing is they're appointed by people who are elected. And also, we have plenty of boards that make laws. I mean, you have the zoning board. You have there's tons of boards that make regulations.
Right. Because to me, that comes into question. Is like, okay, second reading, they pass this dissolution conversation, whatever the specific verbiage is of the legal part of it. They pass it. Are they going to now continue down the road of all the other ones?
Mm-hmm. Are you going to get rid of the zoning board?
I mean, the libertarian in me is kind of okay with it.
I like the zoning board.
But I get it. I get it on both sides. I get the conversation to be had, but it's
or the CTV board, the people that oversee community television, or the PBA board, Public Building Authority, or I could keep going. I mean,
I agree with you. Full stop. Like, I agree that this opens the door. The question is whether or not the door should be open. And I don't know. Part of me likes the door being open and having real conversations about all these different entities at play, the bureaucracy and the massiveness of it, and all these entities at play. That I've asked. Hold on. I've asked at least 3 or 4 different commissioners how many boards and committees and X, Y, and Z's does the county have. Obviously some of them aren't have authority like the Board of Health does, but we got library boards, we got building boards, we got all the ones that you just listed off, and then Board of Health, all this stuff. It's like, and nobody knows the answer to that question. That's a problem. We have tons of people doing tons of things that are either have true functional financial impact on the citizenry of this county, are getting paid by the citizens of this county, are doing jobs that may need to be done, but the people that are elected to oversee this thing don't even know they exist or who they are or what they're doing.
On the flip side, you have this is a way that people are involved in government. I mean, these are not bureaucrats. The people that sit on these boards have real jobs. They own businesses. They work somewhere else. They're private citizens, but they also sometimes volunteer, sometimes are paid very small amounts to sit on these boards. And so in many ways, I feel like if you're coming at it from your libertarian perspective, you would want more involvement in government, because then these are citizens that are making the decisions and not elected officials. So it takes that power from the elected officials and gives it back to citizens in a way, because you have citizens who are appointed to these boards. And most of the boards are volunteer. They don't get paid for this. They're not government bureaucrats. They're citizens who sit on these boards.
Right. And so and we're supposed to assume that they are doing it in the best interest of the citizenry and not themselves. I mean, again, it's
yeah. I mean, yeah, for the citizenry, yeah. I mean, the people on the library board are not trying to take people's rights away.
I mean, they get to decide certain books that do and do not get into the Knox County Library.
I don't think that's what the library does.
I mean, what does the library board do? I mean, that's a real question. I'm throwing out ideas because I don't know what they do. And
the chair. You need to find the chair of the library board.
Well, apparently Kyle appointed one, and so I could reach out to Kyle and see if I can get in touch with her, because Todd made a big stink about how it was one of his bigger donors' wives that he put on this library board.
Yeah.
But but point being is that okay. I mean, I don't know, the optimist approach of since they are just citizens like me and you running around doing normal life stuff and then helping out on these boards, we're assuming that they're in the best interest of the citizens because they're one of us kind of thing. But that's the same thing as Kyle and Dasha and everybody else. They're all just citizens that get paid next to nothing to get shit all over by us in the commission meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, they get paid a little bit more, but I know what you mean.
I don't know.
I think they get $20,000.
They make less than me. I mean, I don't make much.
Yeah, but
that's my goal. I'm gonna throw a big party when I make more than a commissioner on the show.
But those people don't know, nor do they specialize in the things that other people do on the other. And I mean, in some ways, you can't have the commissioners who make the decision about everything.
I agree.
Otherwise,
I agree.
pay them
Right.
because it's going to have to be a full-time job.
No, I mean, I fully agree with that. I don't. It's more of a problem that so far, at least, I haven't found anybody who knows at least the list of what these boards and commissions and committees are, let alone the people on them. They just operate and they just do.
That would be a good project to do, to try and figure out how many appointed.
I know
boards.
we have a committee on committees. I know we have that thing exists. I need to find somebody. I need to find somebody that's on the committee on committees.
There's conferences about planning conferences.
Well, but I'm literally, the Knox County has a committee of committees, and their job is to oversee the committees.
The committees is tasked with trying to. You should talk to the committee of the committees.
I should, and
figure out how many committees there are.
And to date, nobody has given me a contact with the committee of committees chair to talk to them yet. Because
you should try and get an appointment onto the committee of committees so that you can say, I want a immediate and quick stop to any new committees until we can figure out what the hell is going on with these committees.
That's not a bad phrasing. I'm here today to announce the future announcement of an announcement for an interview with somebody on the committee of committees, talking about which committee is and isn't a committee and should or shouldn't be a committee. I lost myself in the same joke. I said announcement and committee at least 5 times each, so I win.
Again, that's just the functioning of government. I mean, government requires people to sit on boards to make decisions because we don't live in an autocracy. There's not one person who makes all the decisions, which is good because one person couldn't make all the decisions. I mean, the county commission couldn't make all of those decisions. The county commission shouldn't be talking about what the fees should be on late books at the library.
Is that somebody that the board does?
I imagine so. I don't know.
And I imagine they get to pick which books go in Knox County libraries, and that could be a substantially important conversation to have. But again, I don't know that.
So again, at the end of the day, like the board, and I also think lost in this, people don't realize that the Board of Health does more than just the COVID stuff. I mean, they make regulations about lots of different things in Knox County. And so, I mean, taking away this power for this one thing is taking away their regulatory or their input on tons of different issues post-pandemic as well.
Board of Health or Department of Health? Those are two different bodies.
Board of Health.
I don't know that. I don't know what other board.
The Board of Health existed before COVID, so they didn't exist just to make COVID regulations.
I agree with that. I'm just saying, like, what other things has the Board of Health done in recent history prior to COVID that we know about to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, it hasn't been as pressing as COVID. Probably because they've been doing a good job, so we don't have to talk about it.
Or nobody. I don't know. I mean, I'm out of the restaurant game. I've worked in and around restaurants for most of my life until recently, and now I'm adjunctly in the alcohol game. But so the Department of Health and the stuff that they do, I'm quite familiar with, but I don't know of any Board of Health on top of that part of it on standard kind of day to day.
That's another discussion, is what are the other specific aspects or regulatory powers or policy making that the Board of Health does do.
Right. Because I think one of the things that is truly a problem with the way the Board of Health is set up is it's an all the time thing. Because I think that's where Biggs started it with the argument absurdum with, well, if the Board of Health decides that sugary drinks are a public health problem, can they, the New York thing, and law director says yes, and then that's when Kyle went full absurdum on, well, if they decide that guns are a public health crisis, can they take away our right to own guns? And then and again, it's the argument absurdum. It's not that I believe that Kyle believes that the Board of Health would try to do that, but if you take the argument to the most absurd version of it.
There's not been any discussion of sugary drinks or anything. There's been a discussion of the pandemic.
But the point is that authority exists there, and Kyle and Biggs incidentally by making the argument.
David Book, though, the law director, is that he says he's giving objective legal advice, but every time he gives legal advice, he's opining about what is the law or isn't the law. In some ways, some of his legal opinions have contradicted previous legal opinions from the law director's office, and I've been a little frustrated that I think in some ways he's legislating from his own opinions as law director on legal precedent or non-legal precedent.
Right. That's something that that I need more lawyers on the show to help me understand, because that's when it gets really, really deep, really fast for me.
And it's like he rules on it, and it's his opinion is the be all end all legal opinion. But I mean, legal opinions are like any other opinion: philosophical, political, theological. I mean, there's lots of different legal opinions that come about to that.
Right, and then it's really whether or not he's willing to defend that argument in court. That's really that's what a legal opinion is. I think I can defend that and probably win. Not that it is or isn't legal, and that's one of the frustrations I've argued about as a citizen. It's like, I wanted to hold a charity poker tournament one time, and I was trying to get sponsors to help contribute prizes and gifts and all the different things to try to make it, to get it as big as possible, so that I could get people to pay to enter, but I'm not paying using their entries to pay for prizes, because then that's gambling. That's and that's the whole thing. And so I called the DA's office, and I called. I ended up. I think the highest I got to this assistant to the state attorney general.
Oh wow!
And every single one of them is like, "Well, consult your lawyers." I don't have a lawyer. Why do I need to have a lawyer for this? Why can't I, as a citizen, ask a question? Can I do this thing legally? And nobody will answer the question, because they're fucking lawyers, and it's always, well, if I were your lawyer, would I defend that, is really what you're asking. It's like, no, I'm asking, is it legal or not? And nobody answers those questions. Because that's the nature of law in this country, is the nothing is or isn't illegal. It's how confident is your lawyer that he can or can't get you out of trouble for that action.
It's similar in law enforcement. You have Sheriff Spangler who says, well, I'll enforce these laws, but I won't enforce these laws.
Right. And that Board of Health being one of those things that, and again, I don't
like what, yeah. I mean, that at the end of the day, people will enforce or not enforce or prosecute or not prosecute the laws that they do or do not believe is true, which again gets back to, oh, well, this is the objective legal opinion. Well, that's your legal opinion.
Right. And again, it's like I can't remember, somebody smart said that part. It's like, there are no laws. There are only consequences for laws that are, I just lost the word, that are acted upon. The speed limit says 75. Well, they don't pull you over until you're at 85. So the speed limit's actually 85, even though the sign says 75. Mm-hmm. That's just, if there's no, it's not even if it's a law in the books, it's not a law if nobody's going to prosecute you for it. Mm-hmm. Or hold you to that standard or whatever it's called. Anyway. So I don't know. Like I don't know the, I wish we would have just solved, I wish we would have just put the final nail in the conversation about the Board of Health, which we wouldn't have either way in the grand scheme of things, but at least take it off the commission's table, get it done with and move on. I hate to think that any of this postponement was a result of the death threats part. Primarily, like that bothers me probably more than anything. But again, it takes up all the air in the room.
To their credit, they've been able to do business as usual. Otherwise, it just takes longer because you have all these people that are speaking during public session. It would be interesting to go back and look at videos from the public forums a year ago versus now, because I'm sure there used to be like two guys who showed up.
Right, it's Todd in there on campaign finance and land use, and that's probably about it.
Yeah, and then now you've got 2 hours of public forum. So to their credit, and to Chairman Jay's credit, he's been able to have still robust agendas with full votes, and they've gotten the stuff done.
See, but I don't know. The problem is I don't know about it.
What did you say?
I said the problem is I don't know about it. Like it's too buried in underneath the mountain of Board of Health stuff that you're not hearing about it, because Biggs was talking about they're excited, and this is what I'm so lost in the way the different governing bodies around here work, is like Biggs was in here bragging about the new schools they're getting built, and it's like, well, how much did the commission have to do with that? I truly don't understand this part of the relationship between the school board and the county government. Yeah. Because as I understand it, the school board's pretty much autonomous. They have their own actually elected body that oversees them that we elect that nobody pays attention to either.
They don't have appropriation power, though. The entire appropriation power of their budget comes from county commission. County commission gives them a lump sum of funds.
Right, but they get to use the funds as they desire. They just have to stay within the budget that the county gives them. Because my understanding of it is that they present a budget to the commission. The commission passes it, and they could throw that budget out the window and operate as they want to operate. And as long as they don't exceed the budget that they presented, they're good to continue operations. And I don't understand that part. I've got an interview in the bag with the second in command of the school board, the vice superintendent. I forgot his name right now. I've got an interview with him where it was just a math conversation, and I could not wrap my head around the math.
Oh, the formula for funding per pupil or whatever.
Right. I can't figure out the math, and it's like I tried to ask him. I was like, just all right. So I go over to the store here and spend $10. $1 gets collected in sales tax on my $10, $9.75 or whatever gets or 97 cents or whatever gets collected in sales tax. That all goes to the state, right? And how much of that comes back to Knox County, and how much of that goes to the school board? And so my understanding of it is like 60% of whatever comes back to Knox County goes to the school board, except Knox County, being one of the major 5, gets less per student than smaller counties, because smaller counties get more per student because of the way the whole math thing works. The smaller counties, the major counties have the ability to raise more money in addition to their schools through property tax than the smaller counties do. So the bigger counties get less money of their own sales tax revenue back, and it gets spread around the smaller counties appropriately, however that works. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, I still don't understand it, but I'm getting behind it. And so, I got a good solid hour and a half with them, and I still don't understand at all, like how some of the different stuff he brought up that was problematic is like, you have state and federal level mandates on certain curriculum need be taught at certain levels or whatever. And like, if the federal Department of Education drops a mandate down and say there's 27 students that are eligible for that in a certain school district, the state law requires 1 per 20 teacher at certain grade levels. Well, you now have to have 2 teachers. The federal government only kicks in money for 1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we're seeing now is you have state unfunded mandates, particularly. Well, what's happening now is Bill Lee is telling Davidson County schools, which is Nashville, Shelby County, which is Memphis, what they have to do. And if they don't do that, then they'll get funding pulled from them. And then also extra mandates, but then no extra funding to make those mandates happen. I mean, in my home state, that's what you had too. You had the General Assembly in North Carolina that was handing down these educational mandates or new policies, regulations from the General Assembly, but they weren't which were basically saying you have to do this extra thing, this extra thing, this extra thing, but then there was no funding for it. So we call those unfunded mandates. Basically, you're requiring them to do more and stretch their resources, but you're not giving them any funds to do that, which means they have to take funds away from other places, which in that scenario, what happened is there was certain like social studies classes that students had to take in North Carolina in high school, and they didn't give any more funding to hire more teachers for that. So basically what you did is you had to take away electives. So like speech and debate went away, AP US history or AP European history went away. Some other like electives went away so that you could then free up teachers to have to teach these required courses.
Right. Which again, I mean, yeah, because that to me, like school stuff to me has become super interesting and super hard to keep up with and follow and try to get in a little more in depth on it. Because it's such a stupid analogy or whatever, but I can't, the state says $10,000 per kid. I can't imagine that I couldn't take 10 kids and $100,000 and get through a year's worth of curriculum with them on my own. Now, it'd probably cost me half of that $100,000 just to figure out all the different rules and requirements I have to do to achieve said goal, which is part of the problem to me. But it's like it just doesn't functionally make sense to me how expensive education is for the product we're getting on the other side. I would, as a parent, I'm not happy with the school system, and I would argue that as on a general survey, I would say most parents are not. I would say if you could get real objective looking back on outside of the social, like I was cool in high school and high school was the best time of my life part of things, which I wasn't either of those things. I could give a shit less about. I'm not mad about my high school experience as far as, socially or whatever. But as far as the education I got in the process, I don't know. I don't know that I'm particularly happy with it on an objective level of what I learned and what I needed to know moving on with my life into my career path and stuff.
It would be interesting, and I don't have any background in this, but looking at the percentage of funds that go to what levels of educational infrastructure that is required for creating a school system, because the school system is more than just the classroom. It's also the teacher, it's the buses that get the kids there, it's the gas in the buses, it's the crossing guards, it's the cafeteria workers, it's the buildings, it's the janitors, it's the
right. But
I don't know.
But
I
basically,
can say from when I was in high school, I was pretty involved in the school board in Guilford County, North Carolina, and in Guilford County specifically, there was a pretty bloated administrative state for schools. You not only did you have the superintendent, you had the assistant superintendent for the West region, the assistant superintendent for the East region, and they also had a deputy assistant superintendent. And the new person that came in, to her credit, I think did a good job of clearing up some funds that were kind of bloated and lost in administrative state. That being said, that's specifically contextual to a specific county in North Carolina.
right. And again, I don't know that this isn't the best it gets, and it could be. I'm not going to pretend like I know better, but I just don't know. I don't understand it. I can't wrap my head around it. And this is one of those things to me that shouldn't be that complicated. Like, it doesn't need to be that complicated. I don't think. Not like a baseball stadium conversation. Not like, not like the Board of Health conversation. Like, it shouldn't be it should be a little bit more clear cut to me. And again, it's one of those, like, what is the metric that we use to consider success in teachers? What is the metric that we use to consider success in students? I don't know what the right metric is, because you have people that get out of high school and go on to be, some sort of whatever career they go into straight out of high school, and they may not be making a ton of money, but they're super happy with their lives. We don't have a metric for that.
Side note, on PBS NewsHour the other night, there was a story about trades. And people have talked about this before, but particularly plumbers. There is a huge need or vacancy for plumbers in the United States. And some plumber, like people right out of high school, go to a plumbing, do an apprenticeship, you do it for a couple of years, can start off making $100,000, $120,000 a year. And I don't know if that's probably not what they would make in Knoxville area, but that made me kind of think once again about what is our policy regarding trades versus other kind of traditional forms of higher education.
Well, because I think a lot of us grew up. You might be a little young for it. I'm not that much older than you, but I think a lot of us grew up with it. There's a stigma on the trades.
Yeah.
That was the I think that's an issue with a lot of different things, not just school conversation and like what people do for a living. I think there's a lot of stuff that we're trying to explode out of these old stigmas of, oh, you're going to be a roofer? You must be stupid or something like that. It's like, well, I might be stupid, but I'm making more money than you with your, because you're teaching some random whatever
at your cubicle job. Yeah.
Right. And you're paying off, you're going to be paying off student loans for the rest of your life. And I'm actually making money and spending it and having a good time. And so, yeah, again, it's I don't know that there's a good metric, and I don't know what the right metric would be to grade a school or a school board or teachers.
Well, and I think when you think about like preparing young people for the workforce as well, the workforce is, more than any time in history, is changing so quickly. Particularly, like, you can have a degree in computer science and graduate with it, and by the time you graduate, it's obsolete because you have to relearn totally what the new kind of realm of computer science is. But something that I think Andrew Yang particularly is pretty observant of or perceptive of is that the automation of jobs
Right.
and what will that look like going forward? Because I don't, and it could be that we think it's going to be this big issue and then it ends up not being that big of an issue. But at least from what we're seeing, I mean, particularly manufacturing jobs, one of the reasons that there's been a downturn in manufacturing jobs is not that it's going overseas, it's that the automation of manufacturing jobs. You can build more with less people quicker now because of certain technological automation than
Right.
you could
And
before.
and there are some true manufacturing people in that, but the majority of the payroll on those places is for the computer engineer or the robotics guy that's making sure the machines are running correctly more than an actual assembly line
But I
person.
guess some of the trades, there's no way you can automate being a plumber. I mean, unless we build a
Yeah,
robot.
you're right. Yeah, I mean, who knows? That's a fun. But yeah, you're right. As of right now, I mean, and because I've had this conversation with a few people, and I think that's that's the first main conversation you need to have if you're going to have a what is the future of schooling conversation is what is the future of work, because I've got a second and a fourth grader, so we're looking at 8-10 years respectively when they're graduating high school. What are the jobs going to be out? What is the actual work going to be for them when they get out of high school? Or if they decide to go to college or whatever, what is the work going to be? I mean, for shit, there was that Blunt Memorial down there brags about their robot surgeons. They got a couple of robot surgeons in Blunt Memorial, at least. I don't know if they have any here in Knox County, but they've got like a robot assisted surgeon computer thingy that, it's got a robot arm that sticks down and it'll get in there with the knife or the suction or whatever. I don't know exactly what it does. I'm not a doctor, but there's a lot of stuff that's getting automated out, and maybe not the job is getting automated out, but periphery jobs are getting automated away.
Yeah. Well, and also, though, to push back on my own point, I believe when you think about a philosophy of education, that education is more than just preparing someone for work, too. That education is kind of the holistic preparation of a person. I mean, if it was just preparing people for work, they wouldn't be taking literature classes or certain history classes. But I think that education is also how we form people to be citizens and kind of functioning, ethical, responsible adults. And part of that is more than just the skills that they need to make money. I think part of it is skills preparation, but then part of it is just like the development, the holistic development of someone into a person. And that's why we take literature, history, and languages and things like that. The humanities. See, I'm a humanities person.
It took you that long to get to the word humanities, but no, you're not wrong. I think, I remember hating it as a kid when it's like, well, you need to take these other classes, you need to do whatever. It's like, I don't want to take those classes. That's not what I'm interested in. And you had to take them or whatever. And then, you get through them and do whatever. And then in hindsight, it's like, okay, that was worth having. I mean, I took home ec in high school. I wasn't mad at it. I love cooking. I love cooking today. I don't know how much of it was from my home ec class, but I love cooking. That's one of my, like outside of this podcast, every pre-pandemic, like family gathering, if I can make an excuse to make it at our house, I'm hosting because I want to cook. Yeah. Like the more people I can cook for, the more fun it is for me. And which is weird because I worked in a kitchen, like a professional kitchen for a while, and it was fucking hell. But
where'd you cook?
O'Charlie's. I'm not a real professional. I mean, I was a line cook at O'Charlie's for a little while. And like I said, I've been in and out of restaurants for a long time, but I was usually a server bartender, not in the kitchen. But
I worked at a frozen custard shop. That was my first job.
Frozen custard shop. My first job was when I was 13. I was delivering newspapers, and it was actually kind of funny. I found my old paper bag.
So you've always been working in the media,
I guess. I'll tell you what. The one of the few times I've ever heard my mom cuss was at my boss when I was working for the newspaper.
Why would happen?
I don't. Basically, she didn't think I was getting paid enough, and I didn't know any better. And she was like, "You take advantage of these fucking kids," and I was like, "What, Mom? You said what?" I freaked out. I don't think she might have said fuck. She said
a good mom. She sounds like a good mom.
I think she said treat them like shit. She didn't say fuck. I don't think my mom has ever said the word fuck.
Well, my first job was working for my dad, who owns a landscaping company, Shears Landscape Maintenance, and then I worked for Frozen Custard Shop.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Young Works work. And okay, all right. So that brings up one that's happening right now from your boy Biden in the national level, and we got 4 years to get to $15. Is that what the plan is?
2025.
Okay, so 4 years to get to $15. I'm pretty sure that's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
So I have issues with this. It's a problem. It's a big. I don't disagree that people need to make more money, but I don't know that this is going to be a functional way to get there.
Yeah. Well, you and I have talked before about what you were talking about, contextualized prevailing wages.
Right. I mean, especially right around here versus in New York, it makes a big difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally I understand that perspective. And I mean, it's yet to be seen if it will be passed. I hope that that particular element of it is passed. But I don't know. The big thing for me, the takeaway from that policy is that going up to $15 an hour, but then adjusted for, I mean, again, part of the legislation is it's still up in limbo. But part of the legislation is that you would adjust the wage as it goes forward. The big thing now is that it's been $7.25 for so long. I mean, adjusted, it's lower now, adjusted wage, than it has been in nearly any time since we've had a living wage or a minimum wage.
Right.
And
so there's two. All right. So there's two things.
Thing for me is we need to build something in so that it incrementally increases. Not so, and I understand we need to respect individual businesses, and I don't know if there's any waivers or anything that are in the bill. But the big thing is there needs to be some sort of mechanism that it gradually increases, because what's happened for too long is it's just stagnated at the same amount, $7.25 for so long.
Okay, so there's two issues. There's two issues at play here. For me, one, the people that want this to happen, is a Bezos, because he can afford it, because it's a new barrier to entry for competition. So it over time will kill jobs in that way. And secondly, it is going to accelerate the Andrew Yang theory of automation taking over faster. Those are the two issues to me. Because so for me and my business example, we don't pay $15 an hour. Our highest paid employee is at 14, and he's perfectly happy with that. We argued the other day about how stupid the $15 minimum wage that Biden's putting up is, and he was even more adamant about it than I was, knowing that if it passes, he gets another $1 an hour. But
in 4 years,
right? But the reality of the situation is that. That for me personally, that would likely eliminate a job. Everybody get to 15, and now he goes from the highest pay employee that I have to the average, because everybody's going to be at 15, because I can't afford to pay him right now. I think our lowest paid is at 10 or 11. So if I'm going to keep the ratio the same, I got to get him up to like an 18 or 19, because my new lowest goes up to 15. And then for me personally, I think my actual average, I don't remember what it is, but I think it's like $16.75 is what I make an hour. I'll take a $1.75 pay cut to have zero responsibility and go work at McDonald's.
But the core, this is 4 years from now. It's a gradual increase, and the fact of the matter is, many states already have minimum wage laws that are above the federal mandated minimum wage that will be past $15 an hour in 4 years. Of course, there needs to be consideration for businesses, for employment numbers.
But okay, I'm sorry.
I don't know the specifics of the bill. I don't know. Is it mandated fully for every single organization? I mean, even like in the ACA, it's required that people or that employers provide healthcare, but it's only required for employers that have a certain level of employees and things like that. And so I don't know the specifics of the bill, but I would say at the end of the day, it's been $7.25 for too long. It's due for an increase, and it's due for a gradual increase. It's not going to be $15 right now. And the big thing for me, again, is there needs to be some sort of mechanism or formula so that we don't let it happen again, where it just stays how it is.
Okay. I mean, again, I don't know what the right answer to this one is. I just like
But from your perspective, I also do understand a contextualized living wage or prevailing wage.
Right. Well, okay. So, but to go back to
prevailing wage or living wage in San Francisco is probably going to be higher than $15 an hour.
Right.
I mean, you probably can't live in San Francisco for $15 an hour.
Right. I mean, it goes back to the stupidity of the first CARES Act. $600 a head in Knoxville's okay. That gets me somewhere. But if I'm in New York, LA, San Francisco, whatever, $600 might get me through the weekend, not through the month. where here we can do something with that. Or the the new 1400 coming out. It's like, yeah, right. Contextual is important. Is right. I think we both agree on that part of it. But to finish my point on my employees is that I'm actually kind of okay with the idea as a strategic advantage for me as an employer. We're at a state of the company that we could afford that. But 4 years ago, we couldn't have afforded that, which means we couldn't be in business. Which means some new guy down the street that's trying to go up against me is going to struggle a lot harder to fight me as a competitor. So it's a competitive advantage to me for this minimum wage to go up.
Yeah.
And so what it's going to do is it's going to make it harder for smaller businesses to jump in and get started and get a foothold and grow into where they could pay $15 an hour. They're dead at the starting line.
Yeah. Well, it's in 4 years. I mean, 4 years, $15 now versus $15 in 4 years is a different. And like you said, 4 years ago, you probably couldn't have afforded it, but 4 years later, now you probably can.
Right. But so assuming the same track record happens 4 years from now, okay, so say some guy starts up now and he's competing with me now. Okay, great. And then we both survive 4 years and through that we gradually get up there. But then some other new guy's coming out 4 years from now. Mm-hmm. He's going to have a harder time competing with us, not only because we've been around longer, we have more clientele, we've had more standing in the community, but now we can afford it and he can't.
Yeah, but part of this, I think, is the free market as well. I mean, labor is just going to be priced up higher, and you can try and get an employee for $7.25 an hour, but that employee is going to have a different capability or different work ethic than someone down the road that's or Chick-fil-A that's hiring $11.50 an hour, and that's something that I think is part of the central element of capitalism. Is you have free market, and free market depends on labor too. I mean, it's very hard. I don't know how many places now actually can hire someone for $7.25 an hour. I don't know.
No, I don't know if any. I don't. I mean, when I worked for Cookout for a little while as a manager, and we started at $7.25 or $7.75, whatever minimum wage is.
And so part of the just free market capitalism is that labor will be priced higher going forward, and like I said, there's even when there's a $7.25 minimum wage, there's a functioning minimum wage that in certain areas that's higher than that. And this, I think, just kind of undergirds, all right, this is an expectation that this is going to be going forward. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you tried to hire someone for $7.25 an hour versus the people that you have that you're paying $12, $14 an hour, even a business starting out just paying $7.25 an hour, they're going to have a hard time keeping those employees before they leave and go somewhere else.
I mean, you're not wrong. It depends on the labor. It depends on the labor market. Right now, sure, it's hard enough for me to hire somebody at $10, $15 an hour right now. Mm-hmm. And we're at we're at some of the highest unemployment we've seen in decades, and I can't hire at $10 or $15 an hour. Mm-hmm. So again, you're right. The free market's going to beat it anyway. But I don't know. It's just I don't see it as a net positive in the long term, because like you said, I don't see labor functioning at the current minimum wage. So what's it matter? Who is getting actually paid minimum wage?
And probably people in non-metro areas, people in rural areas.
Because in the rural area they can afford to live on that?
Well, I mean, in many ways too, I imagine immigrant labor is probably lower wage, $7.25.
But that's the point, is that the mutual agreement between the employee and the employer is at a number, mm-hmm. and there is enough labor available that number is functional. It may not actually be functional for that individual, but it's functional because there are enough other people that are willing to take it at that functional level.
For me, minimum wage or federal required minimum wage is a way to help elevate the workers who are perhaps at the bottom. They're unskilled workers, but still their work has value, and that value should be represented in a prevailing wage based on inflation, and again, the big thing for me is that the minimum wage has not been raised in how many years? 2000, I can't remember. And so it's past due time for that, and there needs to be a mechanism that, and whether that mechanism is contextualized to regions or states, and then it gets into, well, how do you enforce that? Because you've talked about this before, Knox County. If you go county by county, well, then you just drive over to the next county,
Right.
or whether that's.
But it also it gives municipalities a chip or a card in the great poker game of whatever. It's like, hey, you come bring, if it's contextualized in that way, and I'm Roane County and I'm trying to encourage some business to get here. It's like, hey, I'm not going to give you a tax break, but our minimum wage in this county is the lowest around, so you'll have the lowest payroll if you come to our county.
But that, I mean, on a global scale, that's how we got sweatshops.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying.
Wage at all. We just got.
No, my point is that I agree with you on how to contextualize that in some sort of more locally functional manner.
So yeah, it is something that has been long needed, and again, there needs to be some sort of way to formulate or make it progress beyond that going forward. So yeah.
All right.
Hey, what do you think about Robinhood?
I don't know. I don't quite understand the depths of Wall Street finance well enough to really quite figure it out. I think it's odd. I think it raises some serious questions about who is kind of running things, for lack of a better word, and how does one justify the actions, I guess, is what I'm concerned with. Like, how do you justify okay, so we had a bunch of people, for whatever reason, through a Reddit stream, I guess is what it was, decide that they're going to invest in a couple of specific companies, GameStop and AMC were the two examples at play. And so a bunch of people went out and invested in them, and in the standard stock market format, investors flood the market, the price goes up, the price goes up, the price goes up, and then all those people that got in early on that start dumping out as it gets high, and they make a bunch of money in that day. And so, again, my understanding of what happens is Robinhood and a number of other investment
well, not Robinhood. Robinhood was just the people that were facilitating the buys, but large hedge funds were short selling the stock because they expected GameStop to close.
Right, and probably not a bad expectation realistically. But so essentially, but again, to try to put the 10,000 foot view of what's happening here is a bunch of random people decided to do this thing, which is basically to intentionally inflate a share price by all investing together and basically pushing a bull market into existence on their own. And as their conceived action starts taking place, hedge fund operators said, "Hey, this isn't cool. This isn't what we were planning on." And it's like, well, you don't have that's the game we're playing here. Is it's
free market. Yeah.
It's the market doing what the market does, and whether we're over here planning this crazy thing, we're a bunch of individuals that have the right to do this thing. So who are you to tell us to stop? And that's kind of where I'm at on it. I mean, as far as as far as a good analogy for what the stock market is realistically, is it's a weird game of craps. It's a weird game of craps. It's like, I mean, okay, full disclosure, I've since November, I bought Halliburton, I bought Boeing, I bought Northrop Grumman, I bought who else did I buy? I bought one more Blackwater. I bought one more defense agency contractor, because I theorize, I'm gambling on the idea that Biden's going to get us into at least one more war, if not two, or at least reestablish us in some that we've started to back out of, whatever. I'm gambling on the fact that the United States is going to get into more military action over Biden's term, and those stock prices are going to go up. That is my gamble. That is how the stock market works to me. So I invest in defense contractors and industries that make money the more we're at war. Right now, thinking that those stocks are going to go up because they're going to be more active as this administration rolls on. I could be wrong. Biden could not do all these things, and I would be super grateful. I'd love to lose that money personally. But real world, I think this is what's going to happen. So I'm taking this risk. That's how the stock market works. And there's a bunch of different things that happen at the same time. Some of it's where the company itself is issuing new stock in order to raise money for a project or something like that. And some of it is just stock that exists. And it's really just a game of, well, I don't know. Apple stock is at whatever. I think in 10 years, I can sell that Apple stock for more than I can sell it now. It doesn't change shit for Apple unless you own Apple stock. It only changes if you own stock unless Apple issues new stock. And so like, I get the base parameters of it. And so I don't understand how anybody can come in and stop trades because it's affecting somebody else. That's the point of the game.
Yeah, and that's what Robinhood was doing. Robinhood, they call themselves Robinhood because they say take from the rich and give to the poor. It's supposed to be democratizing investing, that anybody can invest. An 18-year-old who works for $7.25 at McDonald's can invest, and a hedge funder can invest. And then they shut it down. They said, all right, well, you can't invest in these things anymore. And the rumor is that there were certain hedge fund people, bigwigs, who called them and said, shut this down right now.
And again, it's, as far as I understand it, it's not only Robinhood that shut it down. There was a couple other platforms that were facilitating trades that did it as well. I use the Cash App for my stuff. This episode not brought to you by Cash App yet. But I use the Cash App for my stuff, and I tried to
Charlie's. Cash App and Charlie's.
I tried to buy some AMC stock, and I put an order in, and it didn't go through.
Huh.
And so
I didn't know Cash App, you can invest in Cash App.
Yeah, they just started. They've got they do Bitcoin's their big thing. But then I've got some Bitcoin, and then I've got a bunch of different randoms.
I have Robinhood, and after this, I was very upset with what they did, and so I'm getting out of Robinhood and moving to something else.
Yeah, Cash App does. They only use one exchange, and I don't remember which exchange it is. So you don't get quite the portfolio of options to buy.
Yeah. I use the Stash app, which is nice. You can invest in it's kind of like broad ETFs. So like you can invest in like a cannabis index fund. You can invest in a real estate index fund.
Right.
Things.
Right. So yeah.
But anyway, politically, I think it's fascinating because it shows some overlap in political fields, because you had like libertarian people and AOC type people were both upset that Robinhood was doing this, because really what they were doing is this is supposed to be a free market. People are supposed to let the market do what the market does. But there were certain high up people, powerful people in Wall Street hedge funds who really, they were the ones that were manipulating the market, because they were saying, all right, most of these people are buying this through these apps. We need to shut those apps down right now. Yeah, and that's market manipulation. That's not a free market. That's an oligarchy.
Right. And right.
It begs the question, who is, and that's the thing about, and I think where some libertarians and some more liberal people can have some crossover, is that regulation of the market is not to diminish free market capitalism. It's to make sure that free market capitalism stays free market capitalism and doesn't turn into some sort of oligarchical control of high up people that can shut one thing down and then
right, for sure. And we'll see how as this pans out, how far any investigation goes into who did what and whatever. And I'm going to guess that nothing's going to come of it. I'm going to guess that those players who were the hedge fund managers that were getting screwed by this random public play, we won't get to find out who they are, because they are probably, because here's where the libertarian part separates from the liberal part, is that I would argue that these people that were powerful enough to tell Robinhood to go away probably own some congressmen, senators, state legislatures, probably have some friends at the Fed and other places that will make sure that their continued action. I mean, I don't know. The other example too would be to go back to the 2008 housing crisis.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with that, and I think that part also goes back to regulation about what is campaign contributions from corporations and campaign contribution limits. Because again, regulation about campaign contributions is not to diminish people's freedom of speech. It's to ensure everybody's freedom of speech.
Right. Or is it one of those people that bounces from being on the Federal Trade Commission and in somebody's staff and then goes to the Fed and then goes back to somebody's staff and then now goes to a hedge fund. That's my question. Is it one of those people? Because we talk like apparently the Knox County Dems think that that campaign finance reform is a big issue to me. You told me that that's what the computer says that I believe.
That's not. It's the DNC. The DNC.
Okay, that's what. Oh, that's even worse actually. But yeah, that's what the DNC believes is an issue to me. And I don't know if there's a category for this, but the more I'm thinking about it, it's the more the people thing that's becoming an issue to me. Is the people that go into like these high dollar think tanks and then they're running for office and then they go into high dollar think tanks and then they're on some sort of press tour thing and then they're in I can't remember. There's an example that just happened and I can't remember who it is. It's somebody that Biden brought in on his communications team that was on Obama's and then went to CNN for the last 4 years and now she's back into this. And it's like, well, at what point does your different jobs, although they are connected career functionally wise, at what point are we talking about where one is you have influence at one place because of where you were, and then you're bringing that influence back to the new place.
Yeah, but
and it's going back and forth.
CNN is different than some giant.
I agree. I agree. I'm just saying that's the one example that I'd heard about recently.
No. I understand what you mean. Well, and I think that part of this is what Elizabeth Warren has been talking about for 15 years, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which you should have Todd on to talk about this. He would be an expert in it actually because he worked there. Is what does it look like to regulate the market to save the market, not to diminish the market, not to obliterate the market, but to make sure that the market maintains its free market capitalism. Because Elizabeth Warren, people say, oh, Elizabeth Warren is a socialist. Elizabeth Warren talks about she's a proud capitalist. She just believes in fair capitalism, because if capitalism just gets out of control and there's no regulation of capitalism, it can quickly become an oligarchy. That's why you bust up monopolies. That's why you make sure that people don't do insider trading, because there's certain level of power that can be attained that can then, in some ways, destroy what capitalism is.
Right. And I'm on board with the problems that are inside that, because you get to like who was it? There were a couple of them, both Democrat and Republican, that early in the pandemic sold or bought a bunch of different stock.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of different...
One was David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, the people that lost in Georgia. So.
Was it? Okay. Because I knew there were a couple on both sides of the aisle. I just don't remember names, because I figured just like everything else, it'd just fall like, that's just normal. That's DC in a nutshell. I don't know. But like the problem to me is like, how do you... I don't know. I get it. I get it. It's a problem, and I don't know the solution to those problems, because I don't know how we isolate. Because it's it's
hard. It's hard. It's in some ways the burden of proof is very hard to.
Well, it's not even the burden of proof. It's that these are individuals that they're going on with their career path. Who are we? Who is anybody to say, well, you can't go into that job? Well, just because you had this job over here doesn't mean you can do this job over there.
Well, in regards to the stock market, I honestly don't know how the Security and Exchange Commission works or the complexities of it, but the CFPB, the SEC, it takes regulatory bodies who have power to investigate. But the flip side of that is it's difficult to investigate when you're investigating people that can pay for attorneys to make you keep looking and looking and looking for years.
Right, or the guy that appointed you to the position is best friends with the guy that you're supposed to be looking at. And how do you, maybe Biden's going to be a better president than Trump was on that, but Trump was certainly willing to fire anybody for any reason at any time. And so if you want to keep your job, you might just have to let this one kind of fizzle out in conversation and hope that nobody brings it back up.
Yeah. Well, the Sherrod Brown, who's the chair of the Senate Banking Committee, has already said he's going to have hearings on this in February sometime. So that will be interesting to watch. I hope it doesn't go under the table, because it illustrates a larger problem too. I think we need to have a discussion about the ethics of allowing short selling and what that looks like, because you have the stock market. The stock market is a place of opportunity. People can invest in the stock market. They can do it ethically. They can do it responsibly. That's how many people have their retirements. I work in a field that does retirement benefits, and so the stock market is somewhere that is opportunity. People have opportunity, and people should participate in the stock market. But the stock market, for some people, for some high up people in certain situations or certain large oligarchish sorts of types of systems, people use it, like you said, as a casino where they just, and not just a casino, but a casino that they can kind of control.
Right, where they're the house, right?
I mean, imagine if you were playing poker and you could control the dealer. You can say, "Oh, don't give him another card." It's that. I mean, in
Right,
some ways, that's what happened with Robinhood. People have just said, "Oh, shut it down. Don't let them sell anything right now."
right. Yeah, and I fully agree with you. It's it is an opportunity to gamble. I mean, that's just I've got an open-ended straight draw. It's a gamble that I'm going to get my last card, but I'm going to pay to see it. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's just it's not. It's gotten to the point where you have like and. To keep the poker analogy going. I've sat down at tables and played poker with guys that are too expensive to play with. Like, you can't sit down and play with $100 because everybody else has got $5,000 on the table, and you're all in to do any action. And that's what the stock market had become, and that's what apps like the Cash App for me, not brought to you by Cash App, thank you Cash App, and Robinhood and these other apps have done is they've made it an opportunity. Because like I bought some Berkshire Hathaway. I didn't buy a whole fucking share because it's $320 something thousand a share right now. But I bought like $50 worth because I could, because it's an option. These apps have opened that game up to regular people to get in and play the game. And to think that
but now we've discovered to a degree it's opened up.
Right. That's the problem. Is that it's like, okay, I'm in, I'm playing the game too. I'm in, I'm going to do it. I see coming out of the, again, like I mean, whether it's my doom and gloom view of it's not Biden personally, it's just the way I think it's the way I think things are going to go. I'm investing in defense contractors because I feel like that's the direction things are going to go. That's a place where I can make some money. It's a shitty way to make money, and I hope I don't. But the reality is, I think it's a good bet. For lack of a better word, and to be able to play it in small chunks and as a normal person, I think is really cool. And right, I think this situation clarifies that this game's not supposed to be for us anymore.
Yeah, well, and I think that after the 2007-2008 recession, there was a movement for greater regulatory control over these kind of large Wall Street firms. But it never truly materialized. I mean, in some ways it did materialize. You had the CFPB that was created. You had a little bit more regulation at the SEC. But for the most part, I mean, what the issues were in 2007, 2008, people can still do those.
Yeah. I mean, that Big Short movie was, and then we bailed them out to boot. But I mean, yeah, I don't know.
And again, I think this issue is intimately tied with campaign finance, because these people, they have power. But why do they have power? Because they can give unlimited amounts of money to campaigns. Right. And if they weren't able to give unlimited amounts of money to campaigns, then it democratizes. Because if they can only give $2,000, I mean, you or I we couldn't give $2,000, but if we wanted to, we could give $2,000, and the only thing the other people could give would also be $2,000.
Right, I see what you're saying there, but I mean, the only issue I have with that is that that's pretending that there's only one avenue of corruption, which is blatant. I mean, it's just not. There's other ways that they could.
You're talking about like appointments, jobs after they come out of office.
Right. There's plenty of other ways to. Maybe it's not in finance, but there's plenty of other ways to buy a politician.
Maybe there needs to be regulation about that too, about sliding door, just going in and out.
Right. I don't know. I tend to if regulation is the word, I tend to say no to it. But I don't. If
maybe there should be some.
I'm just saying if I don't know the answer. I don't know I don't know the mechanism.
I don't think it's going to fix all the issues, but I think part of it should be campaign finance reform. And the other thing about campaign finance reform is it's getting out of control. I mean, it takes $100 million to run for Senate. I mean, in 4 more years, it's going to take $300 million to run for Senate. I mean, the amount of funds it takes to run for office is just absolutely obscene.
Right. Okay. Hold on a sec. Okay. We're almost done. I got a couple more minutes left. Okay. And I'll help you find it. interruption. It's all good. You're right.
Interruption brought to you by Cash App. Take a break. It's best.
I've already figured out how I'm going to do ads in the show, but I just got to get somebody to pay for it. Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. I don't know what the right answer. It's still that one of those. I'm adjusting my outlook to the point where I'm not as hardcore libertarian. Don't tell my friends; they'll get all pissed off. But like, I'm at least open to discussion. Like I've told you about Jimmy Dore a couple times. I'm a big Jimmy Dore fan, and he is hard on the Medicare for All system. And as much as my core principle doesn't believe it to make sense and to functionally work, I'm more, I guess, at the point of anything's. I guess this is my value. This was my value in Trump in 2015-16 when he was running in the first place. Anything's better than the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
Trump was
we have to do something about healthcare because it's out of control.
Right. And I don't agree that this is the best option, but if this is the only other option we're allowed to talk about, let's give it a try. And if it's
it's not sustainable. It's unsustainable for healthcare to outpace inflation every year. I mean, at what point is it going to become 80% of everything that we spend?
Right. And to continue to continue down the current path is like you said, it's unsustainable. So as much as I don't necessarily philosophically agree with the solution on the table, I'm willing to try something different than what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about like campaign finance reform now.
I'm moving on to Medicare for All, but either way, I'm game with giving something a shot instead of pretending like any form that I think I would be comfortable with philosophically is not on the table for conversation. So it's either leave it as it is or get on board with something that may be outside of my philosophy. Mm-hmm. I'll just for the sake of change, I'm going to get on board on something outside my philosophy. That's where I'm at on a number of topics, and it's weird, and it's probably not very good in the libertarian circles and when I talk to those people. But I mean, we can't. There's a number of issues, healthcare being one of them. We can't continue down this path indefinitely and fight over the details of nothing. I mean, there's no details to fight over at this point. And the only option on the table that has any traction is this one. Let's give it a shot. Give it 10, 15 years. Yeah. If it's the worst case scenario that everybody's afraid it's going to be, okay, then let's put it in place and let's work on other plans in the background. And if it doesn't work, let's put something else on the table, because continuing to just pound your head against the wall ain't going to get us anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, government is about trying things. And yeah, I mean, you're right. There are certain political discussions or just societal discussions that we've been discussing for so long and really haven't done anything substantial to address them. But it's like what we were talking about Wall Street problems with Wall Street. I mean, 2007, 2008, that was 13 years ago.
Right.
And we still have similar problems that are today because there was just like a lack of political energy or whatever to take issues on. So yeah, I don't know. My hope is that hopefully going forward, there'll be more impetus from voters to do stuff, because even when you think about what Trump did to the Republican Party, in some ways, I think it made the voters for the Republican Party demand something from the Republican Party. Because from my perspective, the Republican Party has kind of been the party of the status quo, just kind of, we don't really want to change anything, just going to keep it going.
Right.
But they're kind of influenced through what his presence is, well, now they have to at least do something. They have to try something.
Right.
So I don't know. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, before we wrap it up, you talked about reorganization. We are reorganizing in August officially. So KCDP.
Right, which Randy was very surprised that you're doing it that late with city primaries and stuff should be in action at that point, as well as moving into this city general. Yeah, and I know libertarians are doing it here in February. I don't know when the GOP is doing it. On that,
March. They're doing it in March. Daniel
Herrera, you know what I'm talking about?
Daniel Herrera, yeah, you should have him on the show.
apparently he's an attorney. So anybody out there with the Robin Hood situation wants to get in touch with him. Apparently he's working.
I did see you posted that. Yeah,
he is working on some sort of this episode not brought to you by Daniel Herrera Law Incorporated or whatever the fuck his business name is. But he I started. I don't know why I started following him or he started following me or something like that. But he posts pretty regularly on that conversation. But yeah, so if you got screwed by him, then you should hit him up and see if you can get in on a class action lawsuit, and then you can personally sponsor the show. This episode brought to you by Matt Shears.
Brought to you by Matt Shears with $1 million from Robinhood.
Yeah, I won't. But I don't change content for it. That's my rule. You just get your name said. That's it. So I probably won't ever have any sponsors, but that's fine.
No political favors.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I've talked about it with a couple people. It's like, you know, I would love to do this full time. I would do an episode a day at minimum if I could, but I'm not changing format. You know, if I'm getting paid for it, I'd actually build its own studio and get it out of my basement. But that's about it. You know, I try to advance some of the stuff we're doing, get better video and get a better computer that doesn't freak out when I try to go live and slow down and drag. And, you know, if the pandemic...
you should talk to some of the realtors or something, because the people that listen to this show, well, I don't know. I'm trying to think of your audience, particularly for all the local, like, political office holders that you interview. Who are the people that are listening and what would they buy?
I don't know. I mean, the hope is it's all of.
Are you going to start doing commercials for bonds for the new stadium?
I mean, I'd be interested to buy one personally. I don't know what I'd like to see what the return is and stuff like that. I would love to see that as one of the options in the conversation. Is let it be. I mean, put it out there. You know, I mean, I'm a Packers fan. City of Green Bay owns the Packers. It's the only major sports organization that is operated in that way. That the actual municipality owns the team. I would be more than happy to look into something like that. I'm actually pissed off because last time the Packers were selling shares, they were doing some work on the stadium at Lambeau there, and they put out shares to the public. And
were you gonna buy one?
I was gonna buy one, and they weren't bad. They were a couple $100 per share. Yeah. But it's one of those. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of market value. You're not going to be able to sell it very well, but who cares? I just wanted to. I would have liked to have bought one, and at the time, it was not the best use of money. I was not as comfortable as I could have been to make that decision, so I decided not to. But instead, I bought my lordship, and now I'm a lord of Scotland. So
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway. Next time you're in studio, I'll show it too. Do
you have like a little plot of land that you're lord over?
I got a square foot in Scotland. It's mine.
Really? Have you been there?
No. It's a concert.
You need to do a show. You need to do like a pilgrimage. You should do a whole show series.
I will. I don't know if I'll make it a podcast, but I'm going to go at some point just because. But it's a land conservation group over there, where That's cool. Just a way that it's a way for them to raise funds to keep it as wild lands instead of being developed into other stuff. Yeah. And so since it's so it's like I don't know how many acres the total plot is or whatever, but it's a ton of acres, and they sell each square foot off, and so you have thousands and thousands of owners. And so that at any point some developer comes along, they have to get agreement from everybody to sell their stuff, and it would have to be an astronomical fund or an astronomical amount of money for that developer. Even if they offer me a $100 or whatever for the share, it's like, whatever. It's more fun to call myself a lord than it is for $100 right now. So the amount it would cost me to sell my share, let alone everybody else that's in on the thing. So
that's a pretty interesting free market
conservation group. Yeah, I think it's really cool. We're gonna me and the boys are talking about buying some land out in Cumberland County or something like that, and then selling it to Australians as buy some Appalachia and make a bunch of Tennessee moonshine jokes and shit like that, and be like, you too can own a piece of this, and really just make it as a way to.
You can call yourself Bubba.
Right, sure. If it'll talk 1,000 Australians into buying an acre at $10 a square, it's worth to do. But I don't know. I mean, we covered a lot and didn't cover a lot. I'm trying to think if there's anything else specific I wanted to do.
Were your organization? Did you want to ask me about that, or?
I don't care what you do. You're a Democrat. Nah. No, I don't know. I mean, if anybody's interested, if you want to put that out to the listenership, if anybody wants to get involved, I'm more than happy to do that for you. But for me personally, I still don't quite understand. I don't understand how the parties work as a functioning body.
You should come to reorganization. You don't have to participate, but you should watch.
I might. I need to take up some of the different invitations I've gotten from a number of different guests. Just if the pandemic ever ends, it'll make it a little easier when I have time and space and don't have to worry about other things. Because one of mine's on quarantine from school right now, which is the only reason I'm home tonight. I had plans, but
yeah, that's about it.
I had to back up for you. So anyway, go pitch on if anybody out there wants to get.
So come if you want to be part of Knox County Democratic Party. Come in August. Details to be explained on our social media page and emails and a press release probably in the next couple months or so. But it's a way that you can onboard, learn a little bit more about how we're structured and what we do. And if you want to run for precinct chair or district rep or a KCDP officer, then you're happy to do that as well.
Or if you believe yourself to be a Democrat and want to run for city council and would like a little bit of help, even though they can't directly fully help in like they do in the county races, I'm sure Matt will help you at least with some directions on paperwork and some of the different.
Yes, for sure. Well, all of the incumbents that are running are actually they are technically nonpartisan, but they identify as Democrats.
Right. So it's the I don't know. I haven't even looked.
And I noticed that in Daniel Herrera's post, he talked about taking back the city, which I thought was interesting.
I haven't. Well, I guess I'll have to talk to him about that when I get the chance. But and I know, like I said, I know the GOP is doing theirs too, and then the Libertarians have theirs coming up in, I think he said March when he was on. And any other parties out there want to talk? I want to hear. I'm curious.
The Patriot Party.
Yeah, bring me the Patriot Party. I'm down. I'll get my tetanus shot first, but I'm down. But that was terrible. I'm a bad person. But I don't know. Like I said, like there's so many parts and pieces moving around, and just trying to get a handle on it. Like I appreciate that you appreciate like my attempts to try to get a handle on all this stuff. And it's just the more I do it, the more it accidentally boils down to the same 2 or 3 issues. And it's like there's other stuff going on, and it's not getting out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, soon one of those issues will be gone in a couple months, and then the other issue will start.
It should have been gone this week, and that's what pisses me off about it. But you're right. We can get that one.
I think you're just kind of tired of talking about it. You want some other content.
No, for real, absolutely. Like, I mean, again, that was my point. I was watching the news that morning, and it's like county commission's meeting tonight. It's like, oh yeah, I got a commissioner coming on. What's going on that I need to talk about? Board of Health. Fuck. Again. And it's and again, the arguments are out there. Everybody knows where everybody stands. Let's put this thing to bed, and then move forward, and then maybe post-pandemic we can have a conversation about, because again, on that one, fuck, I don't want to go back into this.
Let's not talk about it.
I'm okay with I'm okay with emergency powers, but how long is an emergency functionally last? That's the problem to me. Anyway, I don't know. Last call.
Be sure to check out Cash App. Download at your local Apple store or Google store.
It is kind of fun. It's an easy way to move money without the government seeing you. I didn't say it. This episode is not brought to you by the Cash App yet. I'm working on it. If you didn't know, it's the same people that do Twitter. Jack Dorsey. Yeah, Jack Dorsey owns Cash App, among other things. Anyway, we're Almost Agreement, almostagreement@gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Thanks for Matt coming out tonight. I got Randy coming in tomorrow just to keep things even. And then we've got a full normal show, minus Sam, tomorrow evening. So I've got 2 more shows coming out tomorrow. And then I've got another commissioner on Monday, and I'm keeping it working. Like I said, I'm going to go through the entire commission. And at some point, I'm going to get somebody to talk, Mayor Jacobs, to come in, and I'm going to keep working on the school board issues that bother me, and then I'm going to try to work on the city. And I've reached out to Massey to come back. I've talked to Eddie Manis a few times as well, so I'm trying to keep the content rolling, keep the different information happening. Thanks again to Matt for coming on. We're Almost Agreement, and y'all have a good night. Oh yeah, I forgot we were live on Facebook. I didn't turn that off. Bye, Facebook.
Bye, Facebook.
All right, Facebook.